Chapter 1276. Luo Qingtong lifted her hand and removed the energy cage around the mother of goo poison. The mother of goo poison flew in a circle on the spot and landed quietly on Luo Qingtong's shoulder. Buzz. Perhaps because there was no response from the mother of goo poison, or because the connection with the mother of goo poison had been lost, the formless sound wave from afar became more and more obvious and sharp. Even Hu Zhongtian, Chu Lingfeng, and the rest seemed to have sensed something. Master? Chu Lingfeng looked at Luo Qingtong. The latter glanced at the direction where the invisible sound wave came from, and then moved in that direction. You don't have to follow me. When dealing with goo poison, it was not useful to have more people. Instead, it was easy to become a disaster and be controlled by the other party. Luo Qingtong's figure followed the formless sound wave and flew out of Wilderness City. Outside Wilderness City, in a remote and hidden valley, a black-robed leader kept blowing a short whistle in his mouth. The sharp sound wave that ordinary people could not hear constantly drifted out from the short whistle, but he did not receive any response. What's going on? Why did we suddenly lose contact with the mother of goo poison? The black-robed man's expression was very ugly. He had just received a response from the mother of goo poison, confirming that it had been successfully awakened. But suddenly, he lost the mother of goo poison's response. It was as if someone had cut off the connection between him and the mother of goo poison. But the mother of goo poison was something that the sect master had fed with his heart. This goo poison flute was the reason why he could control it. Other than the sect master, who else could cut off the connection between the goo poison flute and the mother of goo poison? The black-robed man was puzzled. He didn't know what had happened. Could it be that the sect master suddenly changed his mind and stopped the mother of goo poison from killing Hu Fei? But once the mother of goo poison was awakened, it would not fall into a coma again. By then, Hu Fei's abnormal behavior would definitely attract the attention of others. What was the sect master doing? Didn't he say that he couldn't let anyone find out about Hu Fei? The man in the black robe was bewildered. He waved his hand and said to the people around him, "Let's go to the family Hu and have a look. Let's see what's going on." However, before they could make a move, a figure had already gracefully appeared before them like a ghost. "There's no need to go. Are you looking for the goo mother? I've already delivered it to you." As Luo Qingtong spoke, she raised her hand. The goo mother perched on her shoulder immediately flapped its 6 pairs of golden wings and flew up, landing on the tip of her index finger. That lithe and nimble body that flickered with a faint golden light caused the faces of the black-robed people on the opposite side to be shocked. "You! Goo mother!" The group of voodoo sect disciples never thought that the goo poison mother, which they couldn't control without the help of the goo poison flute, would be so obedient and quietly resting on the young man's finger. Who was the other party? How could he control the goo poison mother? The voodoo sect disciples were horrified. Luo Qingtong's gaze swept past them indifferently. Then, she shook her finger. "Go." As her voice rang out, the goo poison mother flapped its wings and flew toward the group of voodoo sect disciples. Not good. Chapter 1277. The black-robed leader's complexion abruptly changed. He hurriedly shouted, "Quickly throw away all the goo worms on your body, then scatter goo repellent powder all over your body, run." Before he could finish his words, a series of blood-curdling screams came from the mouths of the black-robed men beside him. The containers containing the goo worms on their bodies were shattered. Goo worms flew out from the containers, bit their flesh, and drilled into their flesh. In an instant, mournful screams sounded everywhere. The voodoo sect's people who controlled the goo worms tasted the backlash of the goo worms. In the depths of the valley, where the voodoo sect's headquarters was located, sharp screams faintly came from there. Obviously, the voodoo sect's people inside also suffered the backlash of the goo worms. This was the drawback of controlling the goo. Although they could obtain strength far greater than others through the use of the goo worms, at the same time, they were also limited by this aspect. Even if someone's strength was inferior to them, as long as they used a goo worm of a higher level than their own, they would immediately suffer the backlash of their own goo worms. This backlash was simply out of their control. Unless they were prepared beforehand, they absolutely couldn't resist it. And the more powerful the goo worm, the greater the damage caused by the backlash. At this moment, the voodoo sect's people were already wailing. You! The black-robed leader, who was the first to react, looked at Luo Qingtong with a gaze that couldn't be described as simple shock. The other party's manner of controlling the goo mother was so calm. If he didn't know that this goo mother belonged to the sect master, he was afraid he would have mistakenly thought that this goo mother was cultivated by the other party. How could this be? This goo mother was fed with the blood of the sect master's heart. It was reasonable to say that it absolutely wouldn't listen to other people's orders. Even they had to use the goo flute personally bestowed by the sect master, which was stained with the blood of the sect master's heart, to be able to control it. How did the other party manage to control it and make it obediently listen to orders? The black-robed leader was just desperately blowing the goo flute in his mouth, trying to stop the goo mother's actions, but the latter simply didn't listen to the goo flute's orders. In other words, it had been taken away from the sect master. It no longer belonged to the sect master. How could this be? The leader of the black-robed men looked extremely flustered. Because his reaction was the fastest, he sprinkled goo repellent powder all over his body. The goo worms on his body were also thrown to the ground along with the utensils. That was how he managed to escape the disaster. But at this moment, under the command of the goo mother, the surrounding goo worms were clearly gathering more and more. Once the number of goo worms reached a certain number, there would be goo worms that would ignore the threat of the goo powder on him and attack him. At that time, he would be dead for sure. Thinking of this, the face of the leader in the black robe became more and more panicked. He glanced at Luo Qingtong and rejoiced inwardly that the other party's strength was not strong. Under such circumstances, he might be able to escape. With that thought in mind, the leading black-robed man immediately leaped up. His palms were like the wind as he killed all the goo worms surrounding him. Then, he rushed towards the entrance of the valley where Luo Qingtong was. Scram. Chapter 1278. This black-robed man's true cultivation was around upper-grade martial spirit realm. In Savage City, it was already considered pretty good. Seeing his palm coming over, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. Just as she was about to move, boom! A strong gust of wind suddenly brushed past her ear, swept out from behind her, and slammed into the leader of the black-robed men. Bang! That black-robed man was blown away by this seemingly light breeze, but in fact, it was extremely violent. He vomited blood and flew out. Tong Tong. Are you okay? Yu Sihuang's figure appeared beside Luo Qingtong. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong looked at the black-robed man who was blown away by Yu Sihuang. She saw his body ruthlessly smashed into a group of black-robed men who died miserably with goo worms crawling all over their bodies. Then, a sharp scream sounded. It was the goo-repelling powder on his body that was blown away by Yu Sihuang's attack. Feeling that there was no threat on his body, those goo worms controlled by the goo mother immediately swarmed over, turning him into a goo man. Following Luo Qingtong's gaze, Yu Sihuang's expression slightly froze. Tong Tong, these people were all killed by you? He looked at those miserable corpses. If he didn't see wrongly, these people should be from the voodoo sect. This sect's strength in the far west wilderness was not weak. Their ability to control goo worms was very mysterious, and they killed demon beasts very quickly. He didn't expect that they would all die in the hands of Luo Qingtong, and in such a short time. Yu Sihuang looked at the goo worms lying on those corpses, and his heart was slightly surprised. Could it be that Luo Qingtong also knew how to control goo worms? Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she replied. Yu Sihuang could be considered as half of her people, and he had already seen these goo worms. Luo Qingtong didn't intend to hide it from him. She raised her hand and called back the goo mother. As for the other goo worms, she asked the goo mother to order them to leave and summon them when needed. Those goo worms obeyed Luo Qingtong's command and left. A large cloud of goo worms gathered and left, causing Yu Si Huang to widen his eyes slightly. Did you rush here just to deal with these people from the voodoo sect? Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong. He followed Luo Qingtong as soon as he got the news that she had left. He hadn't expected her to be someone from the voodoo sect. Furthermore, he had one alone. Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong commanding those goo worms as if they were her arms, and he didn't know what to say. The voodoo sect could only be considered as a mid-tier force in the western desolate region. However, their ability to control poisonous insects was extremely powerful. Ordinary forces would need to go all out to deal with a demon beast, but they only needed to send a few people with goo worms. Because of this, the voodoo sect's reputation in the far west wilderness had become extremely fearsome. Ordinary people didn't dare to provoke them. Why would Luo Qingtong go against them? Moreover, her ability to control goo worms seemed to be above the voodoo sect's people. One must know that before the voodoo sect appeared, no one could control goo worms. Even the word goo originated from the voodoo sect. Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong, but the latter's expression was indifferent. The strange things on Hu Fei's body were caused by them, so I naturally have to deal with them. What? Chapter 1279. Hu Fei has been in a coma for so many years because of the voodoo sect. The surprise in his words did not seem to be fake. Luo Qingtong suddenly raised her eyebrows. You don't know? Goo worms can burrow into a person's body and control their mind, making them suffer a fate worse than death. Using a goo worm directly as an attack is the most inferior way to use it. The terrible thing about the goo technique is that you don't know when you have been parasitized by the goo worm. Of course, this generally works when the other party is unprepared. Once the other party is prepared, it is not so useful. Moreover, if the strength of the expert is strong enough, such as the sage realm and above, even if they are parasitized, as long as the goo worm is not of a relatively high level like the goo mother, it will be discovered almost immediately and then forced out. In the 24th century, Luo Qingtong dealt with the goo god sect and used this method to control a lot of people. Luo Qingtong has a lot of contact, so she knows the methods of the goo technique very well. I don't know. Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong with deep eyes. He doesn't know all the things the latter said. Not only him, but those who know the existence of the voodoo sect also don't know that the other party's goo technique has such a use. The people of the voodoo sect hide very well. Those who have contact with them only see the scene of them controlling the goo worm to attack directly. Although the scene is very scary, it also makes people think that their goo worm is just a kind of attack method. Now that I heard from you, they can even control the goo worm to hide in a person's body. I'm afraid they have done a lot of things secretly. No wonder in these years, the voodoo sect suddenly jumped up, and their ranking among the many forces in the western wilderness is not bad. One had to know that it was extremely difficult to become outstanding overnight in the far west wilderness. Those forces in the western wilderness are either supported by a strong force behind them, or they have been entrenched here for God knows how many years, accumulating their strength layer by layer. The strength of the voodoo sect is rising so fast, to say that they are doing something secretly, Yu Si Huang absolutely does not believe. Whether they are doing something or not, we will know when we go to their headquarters to check. Luo Qingtong said as she rushed into the depths of the valley. This valley was very remote and secluded in Wildland City. The voodoo sect had done a very good job of concealing their secrets. Therefore, they must have stored a lot of their secrets and resources. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed into the voodoo sect. At this moment, under the command of the goo mother, every Magus poison sect disciple was killed by the goo worms they had raised. Luo Qingtong walked over the corpses and scanned the entire voodoo sect. Soon, he found what he needed. I didn't expect Bai Feng to be the founder of the voodoo sect. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She looked at the secret information placed in front of her. It clearly stated that Bai Feng was the sect master of the Voodoo sect. Furthermore, the Voodoo sect was founded by her. Once a disciple of the Voodoo sect joined the sect, they would have to be loyal to Bai Feng. No betrayal. It's a pity that Bai Feng is quite cautious and did not leave anything that can prove her identity. And because there are no survivors, this secret cannot be used as evidence. Otherwise, with this, Yen Nyang's death can be avenged. Chapter 1280. This thing, when Yen Nyang comes, she will show it to her and see how to make use of it. Soon after, Luo Qingtong found a list on the side. It recorded the people who had been controlled by Voodoo sect for so many years. The name list was densely packed, and it was a ghastly sight. It almost included all the big and small families in Savage City. Only the top few families did not make a move because they were afraid of being discovered. The Voodoo sect's people had spread their tentacles all over the middle and lower levels of the families in Savage City. No wonder their rise was so fast. With the spies in those families, how could the Voodoo sect's rise not be fast? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows as she looked at the list. Then she put it away with a smile. Now, all these things belonged to her. With these, Tianxia's development in the western desolate region will be very fast. She had wanted to bring Tianxia's people to Savage City to see if there was a chance. Now it seems that the chance has come. Su Yu and the others did not need to return to Fenghua City. They could just directly take root here. Luo Qingtong will give the list of these people to her. At that time, she will be in contact with these people. After all, there are ready-made connections and channels. It would be a waste if she did not want them. After Luo Qingtong put away these two things, she searched the entire Voodoo sect. These years, the Voodoo sect's resources and items in the western desolate region were enough for Su Yu and the others to gain a foothold and expand in Savage City. Luo Qingtong looked at these and suddenly laughed. As for Yu Sihuang, who was at the side, his face was filled with grief as he looked at her. Tong Tong, even if there is no merit, there is still hard work. I came from far away to help you. Shouldn't you give me a little reward for my hard work? Everyone who sees it has a share. Yu Sihuang looked at Luo Qingtong. He was waiting for her to nod her head and immediately said that he did not need these things. As long as Luo Qingtong gave him a kiss as thanks, it would be enough. This time, he must not let that pig mess it up. He didn't want a kiss anymore. He wanted Tongtong's kiss. Luo Qingtong glanced at him. Everyone who saw it has a share. All right. She smiled and said to him, then I'll leave this place to you. She raised her hand and patted him on the shoulder. Then, she said with a smile, leaving the entire Voodoo sect to you, I'm very generous, right? You're welcome. Oh right, remember to burn this place clean. You can do it. Luo Qingtong said and turned around with a smile. Leaving Yu Sihuang in the same place, looking at her departing figure, his face was in a mess. He had been tricked again. Why was his life so hard? Yu Sihuang's face was depressed. Not only did he not get any benefits, he even became a free cleanup worker. He was the dignified imperial sect master. Who could he complain to? Yu Sihuang's heart was gloomy for a while, then he accepted his fate and began to clean up the mess. There weren't many people in this world who dared to order him, the leader of the Imperial Emperor sect, around. Tong Tong, you're amazing. I don't believe that I can't think of a way to get your kiss. Just as Yu Sihuang was gloomily dealing with the Voodoo sect's matters, Luo Qingtong had already rushed back to family Hu from outside Wild City. Once she returned to family Hu. Chapter 1281. Silver Bow. Luo Qingtong looked at the small figure that was rushing towards her and quickly reached out to catch it. Wasn't it sleeping under the blanket when she left? Did it come out to look for her? Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking this, she heard a voice not far away. "Quick! It's over here. Catch it." As he spoke, a group of people suddenly ran towards her. Luo Qingtong looked at them and suddenly frowned. She hugged the little silver fox in her arms and raised her head to look at them. She saw that the group of people were wearing the clothes of family Hu's guards. However, when Luo Qingtong glanced at them, she realized that they were obviously not Hu Zhongtian's people from family Hu's main courtyard. She immediately knew what was going on. The group of people rushed towards Luo Qingtong. When they saw the young man holding the little fox, the group of family Hu's guards suddenly stopped 100 meters in front of Luo Qingtong. "Hey! Let go of that little fox, our young master took a fancy to her first." The group of family Hu's guards recognized Luo Qingtong. When Luo Qingtong and the others barged into family Hu's main courtyard, these people were all present. Naturally, they knew that she was brought in by Chu Lingfeng and called Chu Lingfeng Big Brother. However, the image of Chu Lingfeng as a fool was deeply ingrained in their minds. Moreover, the second elder of family Hu's line of people had been in the main courtyard for too long. Almost everyone thought that the second elder of family Hu's line of people would definitely take control of family Hu. Even if Hu Zhongtian temporarily woke up and got better and recognized Chu Lingfeng, that would still be the case. The group of people shouted rudely and asked Luo Qingtong to let go of the little fox in her arms and hand it over to them. Behind them, a little boy who looked to be no more than 7 or 8 years old and had a very domineering expression rushed over in the arms of a guard. Seeing the silver fox in Luo Qingtong's arms, he shouted, "That is my silver fox. Let it go." "Yours?" Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She looked at the little silver fox in her arms. "Silver baby?" Luo Qingtong called out. She wanted to make sure that she didn't recognize the wrong fox. If it wasn't Yinbao, then the fox would be returned to the other party. Yi Qianxian nestled in Luo Qingtong's arms with a gloomy expression. When he woke up, he didn't see Luo Qingtong. He wanted to go out to look for her. But this young fox's body was fun and couldn't resist the temptation. As soon as Yi Qianxian left the room, his body was seduced by a butterfly. That was right. It was just a butterfly. Only the heavens knew that when Yi Qianren saw her young fox body bouncing away with that butterfly, she felt an indescribable feeling of collapse. When he finally regained control of his body, a group of people suddenly ran out and said they wanted to catch him. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Qianxian's body had turned into a young fox and he couldn't use the battle skills and attacks of a human, he would definitely let these people know what it meant to court death. He buried his head in Luo Qingtong's chest and didn't want to pay attention to the other party. Then what the hell was Silver Baby? He didn't want to admit that he had such a childish name, and that it was given by this woman. Yi Qianxian's face was gloomy. He irritably pulled at Luo Qingtong's clothes with all his strength. Her clothes were pulled to pieces and he finally raised his head to glare at her. Chapter 1282. It really is you. You mischievous little thing, running all over the place. You almost got caught, didn't you? Why are you throwing a tantrum? Luo Qingtong laughed as she pinched its little paws. The little fox's sharp claws were still scratching at her clothes, but when it saw her reach out, it immediately retracted its claws. Luo Qingtong looked at the little fox and suddenly felt that Yi Qianxian was extraordinarily well trained. This little fox looked so young, but it knew how to retract its claws and not hurt her when she reached out her hand. Yi Qianxian, the well-trained little fox, was speechless. Luo Qingtong held the little fox's 2 paws and gently rubbed them on her face. She then looked at the guards of family Hu's second elder and said, "This little silver fox is mine. You can leave now." Luo Qingtong said as she carried Yi Qianxian towards the main courtyard. The guards of the Hu clan's second elder looked at each other in dismay. When they saw the interaction between Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian, They knew that she was the owner of the little silver fox. But the young master. The group of people looked at the little boy. The little boy was getting down from the guard's back. When he saw Luo Qingtong carrying the little silver fox away, he became angry. "How dare you?" He pointed at Luo Qingtong and shouted, "Who said this little fox is yours? It appeared in family Hu, so it belongs to family Hu. I am the future heir of family Hu, so your little silver fox is mine. Someone, come and take it." The little boy arrogantly ordered. He was Hu Bang's son. The latter had been designated as the heir of the second elder since he was young. And the second elder's branch of family Hu believed that family Hu would be theirs in the future. Therefore, this little boy was naturally very arrogant. In his opinion, so what if this little fox really belonged to Luo Qingtong? As long as she was in their family Hu, she was his. This little boy was used to being overbearing in family Hu's second elder's faction. When he saw Yi Qianxian, he naturally wanted to snatch it away. As for Luo Qingtong, if she dared to resist, he would just beat her to death. The little boy's expression was extremely domineering. Looking at the group of family Hu's second elder's guards rushing towards her under his command, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly turned cold. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked in front of Luo Qingtong. "Stop! You're not allowed to lay a hand on my lord, ninth brother." Chu Lingfeng's tall figure stood in front of Luo Qingtong. He looked at the second elder's guards with an indescribable anger. "Get out of my way! You idiot! What right do you have to shout and shout here?" The little boy who was being carried by the guards looked at Chu Lingfeng with indescribable disdain and arrogance. "Don't think that you can be impudent here just because you've acknowledged your grandfather. In the future, this place will be our territory sooner or later. My grandfather said that when family head dies, he will immediately drive you away. Family who doesn't want an idiot like you and a slut like your mother." He spoke arrogantly. These words were naturally taught to him by the second elder and the others. As the little boy spoke, he immediately ordered the second elder's guards to attack Chu Lingfeng. "Open it for this young master." Chapter 1283. Let's see who dares to touch them. As this voice sounded, a figure suddenly stepped in from the outside of the Hu clan's gate. Seeing that figure, Chu Lingfeng instantly cried out in surprise. "Mother!" The person who stepped into the family Hu was none other than Yen Nyang, who had rushed to the family Hu after receiving Luo Qingtong's message. At this moment, her eyes were full of power as she stepped into the family Hu. His sharp eyes glared angrily at the second elder's guards. "The main branch of family Hu is still alive. I didn't know that the entire family Hu is under the control of second elder's faction. Collateral branch of the concubine. What right do you have to shout and shout in the main residence of family Hu? What right do you have to attack my son and the guests of family Hu? Men!" As Hu Yen Nyang's voice rang out, a group of people appeared behind her in an instant. These people were naturally those who came to seek refuge with Luo Qingtong when Hu Yennyang helped Luo Qingtong manage the Blackfield residence and properties. These people were either seeking medicine or fame. They were all willing to rely on Luo Qingtong. Unknowingly, the strength of the Blackfield residence and properties under Luo Qingtong's name was no weaker than the ordinary forces in the main city of the Blackfield. One must know that the forces that could gain a foothold in the main city of the Blackfield were at least at the level of commanderies. Above that were the properties set up by the major forces and families of the Holy Dynasty. As this group of people surged into the Hu clan, the guards of the Hu clan's second elder, who had yet to react, were immediately knocked to the ground, each and every one of them wailing endlessly. Wah! When the son of Hu Bang, who had been overbearing and arrogant just a moment ago, saw this scene, he immediately sat on the ground and rolled around, crying loudly. "Grandfather! Grandfather! Come quickly! Someone is bullying me!" He crushed a message talisman around his neck. Immediately, all of the second elder's people appeared near the entrance. What's going on? What happened? Who dares to bully my grandson? The second elder's voice was filled with rage. When Hu Bang was rescued, he only had a single breath left. Although he was barely saved, there was still a possibility that he would not be able to break through in the future. Not only that, but he also seemed to have suffered a great shock. He had become half crazy and half stupid. He was no different from a cripple. After suffering such a blow, the second elder was unable to recover for a long time. He had already treated Hu Bang's son like a treasure. This was because this was the only direct descendant of his bloodline. That was why he had specially brought him to his side this time. He was prepared to educate him so that he could inherit family Hu's family business in the future. At the same time, he was also prepared to keep an eye on him so that he wouldn't make any more mistakes. Now that he heard the other parties wailing, he was naturally furious. The second elder had already regarded the entire family Hu as his property. Naturally, he did not think that there was anyone here who could go against him or suppress him. Just as he was about to explode in rage and vent his anger on behalf of his grandson, he saw Yen Nyang, who had a dignified look on her face. Yen Nyang had taken charge of the Black Field Mansion for Luo Qingtong and dealt with the various forces of the Holy Dynasty and the Four Domains. She had already cultivated the dignity and bearing of a superior. Chapter 1284. What shocked him even more was that Yen Nyang had actually returned to family Hu. Furthermore, from the looks of things, she seemed to be doing quite well outside. If she wanted to enter family Hu and regain control of family Hu, then his branch would not have any advantage at all. As second elder thought of this, he suddenly felt a sense of unease. At this moment, he couldn't care less about his wailing grandson and hurriedly said to Hu Yennyang, "You've caused family Hu to be reduced to a laughing stock for so many years. You even got pregnant before marriage and gave birth to a retarded son. You actually have the face to return to family Hu and appear in front of us? If you don't want to bring any more trouble to family Hu, then get out of here immediately. Whether I get out or not, I don't need you to give me orders." Hu Yennyang's voice was cold. "I'm a direct descendant of family Hu. As long as my name hasn't been removed from the genealogy, I have the right to stand here. Instead, it's you who are from a concubine's branch who is above the direct descendant. What are you trying to do? This is family Hu's main residence. It's where we, the direct descendant, live. If you want to get out, the ones who should get out are you." At this point, Hu Yennyang waved her hand coldly and shouted, "Chase all of them out of family Hu." Hu Yennyang had learned some ruthless and unscrupulous ways from Luo Qingtong. Now that she had received news from Luo Qingtong and returned, she had already made up her mind to investigate what had happened that year. Naturally, she wouldn't be chased away by second elder's words. Furthermore, the person she had always felt guilty towards was Hu Zhongtian. As long as he forgave her and was willing to accept her back into the family, Hu Yennyang wouldn't care about what others said. Not to mention, second elder and the others were just about to attack Luo Qingtong and Chu Lingfeng. How could Hu Yennyang allow them to continue behaving so presumptuously in front of her? Following Hu Yennyang's command, the group of people behind her immediately closed in on second elder and the others. Seeing this, second elder's face filled with rage and he shouted sternly, "How dare you? This is family Hu. It's not a place for you outsiders to behave atrociously." He was about to make a move when a voice suddenly sounded from the side. "You also know that this is family Hu?" Hu Zhongtian was gasping for breath as he allowed the secret guards to support him. He looked at the second elder and the others with anger on his face. "Chase all of them out of here." His son had woken up and his daughter had returned. Hu Zhongtian believed that he no longer had any regrets. He had sacrificed too much for the Hu clan in the first half of his life. Even his daughter had almost been separated by life and death. This time, he wasn't prepared to compromise. He would not hand the Hu clan over to anyone else. He would never allow anyone to obstruct Yan Nyang's return. Second Elder's expression changed dramatically. He looked at Hu Zhongtian and said indignantly, "Are you really not going to spare a thought for family Hu? Hu Yannyang. She offended the Hu family when she got pregnant before marriage. She even made family Hu a laughingstock. Now that she has returned with that vile spawn, isn't this a slap to the Hu family's face? Big brother. Do you really want to see family Hu fall into eternal damnation? Furthermore, the elders will not agree to it." Second Elder spared no effort in persuading and threatening Hu Zhongtian to change his mind. Chapter 1285. Moreover, the person who framed her was Bai Feng from the Bai family. She was already married to Hu Ting from the Hu family. If the Hu family wanted to pursue the matter from that year, they should look for their own daughter-in-law. What did it have to do with family Hu? As Hu Zhongtian thought of this, he became even angrier. He glared at Second Elder coldly and angrily. It was because of what Second Elder had said that his daughter had been wronged and had to leave her home. Now, Second Elder still wanted to use such words to pressure him. This time, he would absolutely not compromise. "You don't have to worry about any of this. After all, you are just a branch of the family. Isn't that so?" Hu Zhongtian said with a cold expression. He then coughed heavily and waved his hand to chase away the Second Elder and the others. All these years, Hu Zhongtian had kept all the forces in family Hu's main residence in the main courtyard. Hearing his order, all the secret guards and bodyguards under the control of the family head and the main bloodline rushed out and chased Second Elder and the rest out. Along with their luggage and belongings in family Hu, they were all thrown out. Family Hu's Second Elder and his people were in a very sorry state. They thought that they would be in control of family Hu sooner or later. Previously, they had moved into family Hu's main residence in a very high-profile manner and said that they were helping the family head manage things. At that time, Hu Zhongtian was seriously ill and Hu Fei had been in a vegetative state for more than 10 years. For family Hu's future, Hu Zhongtian had no choice but to agree. Now, he had completely thought it through. Even if he had to sacrifice the entire family Hu, he would never let his daughter be chased away. Moreover, Hu Fei had already woken up. The future of family Hu would naturally be led by someone from the main bloodline. There was no need for Second Elder's people to flaunt their power here. How could they humiliate his grandson and daughter? Moreover, Hu Zhongtian had already heard about what had happened on his way here. It was all because the little tyrant of family Hu's Second Elder wanted to snatch the little fox raised by Luo Qingtong. This had completely crossed Hu Zhongtian's bottom line. Her life and her son's awakening were all thanks to Luo Qingtong. The young man was so talented and had such outstanding medical skills that Hu Zhongtian couldn't even thank him enough. However, the people of family Hu's Second Elder's line treated him like this. How could Hu Zhongtian tolerate this? If they didn't chase out the people of Second Elder of family Hu's faction, who knew what they would do next? If he really hurt Luo Qingtong, how could he face his daughter and grandson? Hu Zhongtian mercilessly ordered the expulsion of the Second Elder's people. The group of people was chased away from the main residence in a sorry state. All the luggage was thrown out like trash, smashing into their faces and bodies. The Second Elder's people were so angry that their faces turned ashen. At this moment, the young master of the Second Elder's branch, who was originally sitting on the ground and pretending to cry loudly, waiting for his grandfather to come and vent his anger for him, looked at the scene around him and the scene of the luggage being thrown out. Instantly, he began to cry loudly with a hua. This time, he was really crying. I don't want to leave the main residence. I want to go back. I'm the future heir of family Hu. In the future, family Hu will be mine. Wah! Grandfather! Quickly go and kill those people who want to chase us out. Didn't you say it already? When they're all dead, family Hu will be ours. Chapter 1286. That young master continued to cry and make a fuss. The second elder's face turned ashen when he heard his words. He fiercely slapped out, sending the grandson whom he had always doted on flying. He scolded angrily, "So it's all because of you, evil creature." Second elder's heart was filled with anger. He was wondering why Hu Yannyang had made things difficult as soon as she came back, and why Hu Zhongtian didn't care about their old friendship. He didn't even care about the family Hu and the unconscious Hu Fei, and only wanted to drive them out. So it was all because of this evil creature. How could these words be casually said outside? Now, even if he wanted to blame Hu Zhongtian, it was impossible. Looking at the disdainful and contemptuous gazes of the crowd, second elder was so angry that he trembled. If it wasn't for the fact that that bastard was the only root left behind by Hu Bang, he would have slapped him to death. Second elder was filled with anger. He ordered people to carry that young master and hurriedly left this place. He couldn't stay here and be criticized by others. Moreover, Hu Zhongtian wanted to send them away like this, which was absolutely impossible. Hu Zhongtian wanted to pass on the family Hu to that slut Hu Yannyang and that idiot grandson of his. It also depended on whether the clan allowed it or not. Thinking of this, second elder's face suddenly became gloomy. The group of people were like stray dogs as they left dejectedly. After they left, Luo Qingtong calmly retracted her gaze. The reason why the young master lost his mind and spoke such words without thinking was because of the young master. It was completely because Luo Qingtong had just used her mental strength to stimulate his brain, causing the resentment and anger in his heart to magnify. Only then did he reveal the thoughts and plans of the second elder's lineage in front of so many people. Luo Qingtong didn't want to see second elder's faction in the family Hu anymore. They dared to steal her silver treasure. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Out of all the gifts Yi Qianxian had given her, this was the only one that she liked the most. No one is allowed to move. Luo Qingtong lowered her head and kissed the silver fox's paws. She smiled and said, "Okay, the annoying people are gone. You can wander around the family Hu from now on. But you're too naughty. In order to prevent you from getting lost in the future, I have to get someone to watch over you. I don't want you to run away and get caught." Luo Qingtong said, chuckling and kissing the little guy's nose. Yi Qianxian raised his head and looked at the girl's face that was close to his, even though Luo Qingtong had already covered her face. However, in Yi Qianxian's eyes, Luo Qingtong's beauty couldn't be concealed at all. She was still as breathtaking, enchanting, and gorgeous as ever. He couldn't help but lick the girl's lips. He was very happy that Luo Qingtong thought so highly of him. After all, he knew that in Luo Qingtong's heart, he was just a little fox that he had given her. Luo Qingtong treated him so lovingly and carefully. Did that mean that she cared about his feelings? Humph. This woman doesn't mean what she says. Yi Qianxian's heart rippled, but he still hummed softly and proudly. Affected by the body of a young fox, the humming from his mouth turned into a soft cub's cry. It sounded very cute and cute. Before he could react, this body had already followed his heart and licked Luo Qingtong even harder. That pair of fluffy tails wagged happily. Chapter 1287. Yi Qianxian looked at his young fox body and couldn't bear to look at it. Unfortunately, he couldn't control the animal instincts of this body. Forget it, this cuteness was for this woman to see anyway. Yi Qianxian thought to himself in despair. He gave up on suppressing his young fox instincts. Luo Qingtong chuckled at the silver fox's series of fawning actions. Especially when she saw the disdain and displeasure in the silver fox's eyes, but his body was honestly expressing its joy to her. She felt even happier. This guy was so cute and proud. It really had the same personality as Yi Qianxian. Was he really the one who taught it? As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she chuckled even more happily. While the woman and the fox were interacting, Hu Yennyang and Hu Zhongtian had already recognized each other. The two of them were crying uncontrollably. After finally controlling herself, Hu Yennyang walked in front of Luo Qingtong and respectfully bowed to her. Her eyes were red as she said, "Thank you, ninth young lord, for helping our family Hu." Knowing that Luo Qingtong's identity couldn't be revealed, Hu Yennyang used the title Chu Lingfeng used for Luo Qingtong. Chu Lingfeng could call Luo Qingtong ninth brother, but she couldn't call Luo Qingtong by her pseudonym. She immediately used ninth young lord to be respectful and polite. Seeing her respectful attitude, the people of family Hu didn't think much of it. However, the people who followed Hu Yennyang to the Blackfield mansion were surprised. Not because of anything else, but because of Hu Yennyang's current status in the Blackfield of the Empire of Qin. Even the city lord of the Blackfield had to treat her with respect. There was no need to even mention the strong people of the Holy Dynasty. They didn't expect her to be so respectful to the young man in front of them. They didn't know who he was. Could it be that he came from the Blackfield? As these people thought about it, their gazes towards Luo Qingtong became more cautious. Okay. Luo Qingtong didn't care about their gazes. She just faintly responded and walked towards Hu Zhongtian's courtyard with the silver fox in her arms. There were too many people here, and many things were inconvenient to talk about. Luo Qingtong carried the silver fox to the main hall and sat down. Hu Zhongtian and Yen Yang had already dismissed the people around them and sat down with Chu Lingfeng in front of Luo Qingtong. Mistress. Hu Yennyang looked at Luo Qingtong and hesitated. She had too many things she wanted to ask, but in the end, she didn't know what to ask first. She had just learned from Hu Zhongtian everything that had happened over the years. She didn't expect that after she left, so many things had happened to family Hu. Yen Nyang's heart was filled with regret. For a long time, because of guilt and because of the pursuit, Hu Yennyang didn't dare to pay attention to family Hu. She was afraid that she couldn't help but want to come back and bring unnecessary trouble to family Hu and her father. Who would have thought that family Hu would have such a huge change? If it weren't for Luo Qingtong coming to the far west wilderness and involving the Holy King's tomb, Yen Yang wouldn't have asked Luo Qingtong to help take care of family Hu, and she wouldn't have known what had happened to family Hu. If that was the case, wouldn't she not know that her father and elder brother had been killed by someone? Thinking of this, Hu Yenyang's heart suddenly felt a burst of grief. Chapter 1288. This is what I obtained from the Voodoo Sect. Take a look for yourselves. By the way, the Voodoo Sect is the main culprit who planted goo in your elder brother's body, causing him to be in a coma for more than 10 years. And the person behind them is Bai Feng. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she spread out the secret information she obtained from the Voodoo Sect in front of Hu Yenyang. Bai Feng's ambition is not small. Apart from your elder brother, all the big and small families in Wilderness City are under her control. Most of those people belong to the middle management of those families. They hold real power but do not attract too much attention. It is very convenient for them to work for her and provide her with information and resources. This is the reason why the Voodoo Sect has grown so quickly over the years. However, she seems to be very wary of your elder brother. She did not use ordinary goo worms on him. Instead, she used the goo mother. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she looked at Hu Yenyang and said, "You probably do not know what the goo mother represents. Having the goo mother means that one can control all goo worms below the level of the goo mother. The fact that Bai Feng used the goo mother on your elder brother proves that she holds your elder brother in high regard and is very wary of him. She is afraid that someone will discover that she has done something to your elder brother. That is why she planted the goo mother on him. The goo mother is different from ordinary goo worms. Once it is awakened, it will kill the host. That is why your elder brother has been in a coma for so many years. He is not like other people who are awake and controlled by the goo worms in their bodies. Luo Qingtong did not think that Bai Feng would use such a precious Gu mother to harm Hu Fei just to make him fall into a coma and become a vegetable for more than 10 years. She did not think that Bai Feng did it unintentionally. It was very likely that Hu Fei knew something about Bai Feng, especially about how she had dealt with Hu Yannyang. That was why Bai Feng treated him like this. The reason why she used the Gu mother to make him fall into a coma instead of killing him directly was because she was wary of the man who had taken Yannyang's virginity. If that was the case, then everything made sense. Bai Feng had already received news of that man's arrival. That was why she sent people to kill Yannyang. During this process, Hu Fei should have discovered some clues. In order to prevent her actions from being exposed, Bai Feng had used the mother of Gu poison to turn Hu Fei into a vegetable. White Phoenix. As soon as Luo Qingtong finished speaking, Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian's eyes turned red. They did not doubt Luo Qingtong's words. It was too much of a coincidence that Hu Fei had fainted. Just when Yannyang went missing and that person delivered the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb to him. Coupled with the evidence of the voodoo sect that Luo Qingtong had placed in front of them, even if Hu Fei hadn't woken up yet and personally confirmed this matter, they already had no doubts. Ha! Hu Yannyang laughed with a sorrowful look on his face. He laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. It turns out that the person whom I had wholeheartedly helped and treated as a sister was the one who had caused me the most misery. Bai Feng. What have I done wrong to you? Why are you doing this to me? Her eyes were red and her laughter was choked with sobs. All these years, Hu Yannyang had always wondered who had hated her so much that they had caused her to fall into such a state. When she had received Luo Qingtong's message, she had still been in disbelief. Chapter 1289. Hu Yannyang had always been grateful to her all these years. Even when she had been hunted down and almost died in the hands of the attackers, she had never thought that it would be Bai Feng who had sent them. Now that she thought about it, Bai Feng was the first to arrive when she was in trouble. She had even brought the Hua family Hu with her. She had said that she was worried about her safety and had specially come looking for her. At that time, Yannyang had been completely disheartened and had viewed that night as a humiliation. She had never been willing to think about it. Now that she thought about it, if Bai Feng had even the slightest bit of consideration for her, she would not have brought the Hua family along. After all, she had not returned for the entire night. Something could have happened. If she had brought the Hua family along at this time, she would not be able to explain herself even if she had not lost her virginity. Furthermore, Bai Feng had hugged her and cried the moment she had entered the house. She had said that she was sorry for not finding her in time and that she had been bullied. However, that man had not been by her side at that time and she had been fully dressed. How had Bai Feng been so sure that she had lost her virginity? If it had not been for her words, Hu Yannyang would not have fallen into such an embarrassing situation. Family Hu would not have lost face in front of everyone. Bai Feng had taken advantage of the fact that she was heartbroken and unwilling to think about the past, so she had not discovered these suspicious points. How could she have done it so brazenly? Hu Yannyang's heart was dripping with blood as the unbearable memories of the past were brutally torn apart. If someone wants to harm you, why would she care if you treat her well? She only thinks that you have not treated her well enough and wishes that everything that belongs to you belongs to her. She will only be satisfied when she stomps you to the bottom of the mud. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Wasn't that Luo Qingtong the same? She had treated Luo Xining with all her heart, but in the end, her cultivation had been destroyed and she had been thrown to a bunch of trash. Some people's desires were limitless. They would never be satisfied unless you gave everything you had to her. Even so, she might still think that you had given her too little. And if you don't give it to her, she will think that all the things you gave her before were all an act, that you were giving her charity. She would want to stomp you to the bottom of the mud. There was a unified term for this type of person, and that was, ingrate. And Luo Qingtong would never be soft-hearted towards these people. Whose things were not things? It's mine. Why should I give it to you? I'm willing to give it to you because I'm a good person. If I'm not willing and dare to come up and snatch it, then I'll chop off all my hands. As for the information about the voodoo sect, I'll leave it to you to decide what to do. As for the list, I will give it to Su Yu so that Tian Xie can develop further. If you need anything, just go to her. Luo Qingtong said to Hu Yennyang. As one of her people, she could let Hu Yennyang know and use these resources, but it didn't mean that she needed to share them with Family Hu. Family Hu was Family Hu, and Hu Yennyang was Hu Yennyang. This was something that Luo Qingtong had always understood. She also hoped that Hu Yennyang wouldn't get mixed up. Yes. Understanding the meaning behind Luo Qingtong's words, Hu Yennyang wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and responded respectfully. As a master, Luo Qingtong had already done everything that she could. Hu Yennyang didn't have any complaints in her heart. She also didn't dare to let Luo Qingtong share her things with Family Hu. If it wasn't for Luo Qingtong, Family Hu might have already been destroyed. What else could she ask for? Chapter 1290. You deal with Baifeng's matter yourself. In addition, help me investigate the Saint King's tomb and see what's going on. Luo Qingtong's fingers tapped on the table. She knew from Bai Jintang that the Saint King's tomb had been leaked. The one who leaked the news of the Saint King's tomb was the top family in Wilderness City, the Ouyang family. The latter was the head of the top families in Wilderness City. Their strength was very strong. It was said that there was a sage master in the family, but no one knew whether it was true or not. The Ouyang family was the first batch of pioneers to come to the far west wilderness. They also had a part in the establishment of Wilderness City. Now, they were deeply rooted in the far west wilderness. They were not to be trifled with. The news of the Saint King's tomb was announced by the Ouyang family not long before Luo Qingtong came to the far west wilderness. The latter gathered many forces in Wilderness City and announced the news of the Saint King's tomb to the public. They also showed the map of the Saint King's tomb to everyone, indicating that they would not monopolize the existence of the Saint King's tomb. Once the map was collected, all forces in Wilderness City would be invited to explore the Saint King's tomb together. The other party said it so selflessly. Luo Qingtong had doubts in her heart. She absolutely did not believe that the Ouyang family did not have the intention of monopolizing the existence of the Saint King's tomb. Even if their family could not monopolize it, it was normal to use the map to exchange for some benefits and then cooperate with several families and forces to explore together. Why did they announce it so selflessly? There must be a reason. Luo Qingtong needed to find out. Yes. Master, don't worry, I will do my best to find out. Luo Qingtong nodded and was ready to leave with Yi Qianxian. However, the latter could not control its cub nature from the moment she started tapping on the table. It stared unblinkingly at Luo Qingtong's jade-white fingers, which were gently tapping on the table. Then, it abruptly jumped out of her arms and lay on the table. It played with her fingers in all kinds of ways and jumped around. It was having so much fun. Yi Qianxian could not bear to look at his cub's silly actions. He tried his best to suppress it but could not. When this cub's body in front of Luo Qingtong, it seemed to be particularly lively. Yi Qianxian could not control it no matter how hard he tried. It was not careful, it made a stupid mistake. If it wasn't for the fact that Luo Qingtong didn't know that the silver fox was her, Yi Qianren didn't know what kind of expression she should have when facing Luo Qingtong. It was simply, Yi Qianxian's heart. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, froze when she saw the silver fox jump out. When she realized it was playing with her fingers, she couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the little guy's face full of disdain and playing happily, Luo Qingtong really loved its arrogant character of saying one thing and thinking another. It really was the same as a certain someone. Speaking of which, she really missed Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong was not in a hurry to leave. She did not care that Yen Nyang and the others were next to her. She used her fingers to play with the silver fox. The little guy's reaction was very funny. Its eyes were full of, "How could I like this kind of thing?" and "Don't bring it over." Chapter 1291. When it missed, it would anxiously scratch the table with its claws. Then, the next time it pounced, it would try even harder. Luo Qingtong watched as it tried to act cute. In the end, she allowed it to grab her finger. The little guy was very happy. It hugged Luo Qingtong and rolled around on the table. It even used its toothless mouth to nibble on Luo Qingtong's finger. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she saw this. The girl's laughter rang through the room. Yi Qianqian's face was gloomy. He gritted his teeth and wanted to strangle the young fox's body. But when he heard Luo Qingtong's laughter and saw the girl's happy face, the gloominess in his heart lessened. Forget it. Who told this girl to like it? If I'm not good enough, then so be it. He thought dejectedly. He completely gave up the idea of struggling to control this body and let it roll around on the table, ruining his image. Luo Qingtong played with the silver fox for a while. Then, she picked it up and walked outside. Okay, I'm not playing anymore. When we get back, I'll make you a little cloth tiger to play with. Yi Qianqian's face was gloomy as he nestled in Luo Qingtong's arms. When he heard the girl's words, his mouth twitched. What little cloth tiger? He didn't want that. Yi Qianxian couldn't imagine his young fox body hugging a little cloth tiger and biting it. This damn demon fox blood curse, when will it be cured? Yi Qianxian felt the demon fox blood in his body slowly dissolve. He angrily sharpened his claws in Luo Qingtong's arms and scratched the girl's clothes. Luo Qingtong didn't scold him. She just lovingly pinched his little claws and said, "Do you really like it? Can't wait? When we get back, I'll make it for you." Thinking that Yi Qianxian liked her, Luo Qingtong was very happy and smiled. Sure enough, no matter if it was a child or a cub, they all liked those cute little toys. Unfortunately, the little pig was too noisy, and the gold-seeking hamsters were too rare, easily attracting attention. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have released them to accompany the little fox. However, Luo Qingtong immediately dispelled this idea when she recalled Little Pig's despicable personality. She carried Yi Qianxian back to the room and made a little cloth tiger for him. The little cloth tiger made by Luo Qingtong could be said to be lifelike. Although she had never touched needlework before, Luo Qingtong had blood-red eyes. She easily learned it on the spot and made a cute little tiger for Yi Qianxian. Ah! Luo Qingtong threatened Yi Qianxian with the little cloth tiger in her hand. The tiger is coming. Yi Qianxian looked at her and was speechless for a while. He really didn't know what to say. Luo Qingtong looked at his disdainful and disgusted expression and was very amused. She looked at the little silver fox and pursed her lips into a smile. Then, she threw the little cloth tiger to the ground. In an instant, the little cloth tiger started to move on the ground. It turned out that Luo Qingtong had made 4 wooden rollers below and installed a small mechanism so that the little cloth tiger could make use of the throwing force to move continuously on the ground. Yi Qianren looked at this little cloth tiger and originally didn't want to bother with it. However, its body couldn't take it anymore. Immediately, they ran to catch that little cloth tiger again. Chapter 1292. Just as Luo Qingtong was teasing Yi Qianxian, in the Hua family of Wildland City. When Luo Qingtong subdued the mother of venomous insects, Bai Feng had already spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Bai Feng was shocked. She could clearly feel that she had lost contact with the mother of venomous insects. How could this be? Her heart was filled with disbelief. This venomous insect technique was a strange technique that she had accidentally obtained. With this strange technique, she had secretly established the voodoo sect in Wildland City. Using her identity as the eldest daughter of the Bai family and the young mistress of the Hua family, as well as the mysterious and strange effects of the venomous insect technique, she had been doing very well in Wildland City. Now, she was not inferior to an average middle-class family. Bai Feng had only been waiting for the voodoo sect to continue to grow. Then, she would be able to obtain more benefits for herself and become a person that no one could ignore in Wildland City or even the entire Western Wilderness. By then, even the Hua family would have to support her. But now, the mother of venomous insects was no longer around? Could it be that something had happened in the voodoo sect? Did someone break through the restrictions of the venomous insect technique and betray them? Did they control the mother of venomous insects? This was the only reason Bai Feng could think of. Her heart was filled with hatred. If she had known this would happen, she would not have given them the venomous insect flute to hide her identity. These bastards! Bai Feng was both shocked and furious. She wiped the blood from her mouth and called for the servant girl outside. I have to return to the Bai family for some matters. If the young master comes back and asks about it, tell him that I'll be back in 2 days. Big brother has some matters to attend to. Bai Feng gritted her teeth as she said this. Her eyes were cold. Yes, the servant girl replied obediently. Bai Feng left the Hua family with a cold expression. When she reached the Bai family, she immediately changed her clothes and went to the voodoo sect's headquarters. When she saw the voodoo sect's headquarters that had been cleaned up by Yu Xihuang, or rather, burned to ashes, she felt as if someone had hit her in the head. She almost fainted and fell to the ground. Who did this? Bai Feng's delicate and charming face was twisted with anger. She had spent so many years painstakingly establishing the voodoo sect. How much effort had he put into this? Not to mention that the voodoo sect had given her everything she had gained over the years. All the treasures and resources that the voodoo sect had gathered from the powerful families in Desolate City were also in there. But now, they were all wiped out. She had thought that someone in the voodoo sect had betrayed them, but now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. The other party had moved too thoroughly. Bai Feng was infuriated. She searched the ruins for a long time, unwilling to give up. She searched for the goo using her heart's blood according to the goo arts she had obtained, and the method to retrieve the goo worm. He had used all kinds of methods, but he was still unable to contact the location of his goo mother. That was the goo poison queen that she had obtained by luck, and she had always treated it as her favorite. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid of Hu Fei spouting nonsense and ruining her plans, how could she bear to place the goo poison queen in his mind? Fortunately, no one had noticed anything amiss after all these years. Instead, he had absorbed Hu Fei's life force and soul energy to replenish himself. When the goo mother grew, she would also benefit from it. His strength had grown a lot over the years. Who would have thought that he would disappear now? Chapter 1293. Luo Qingtong's method of controlling the goo mother originated from the goo god sect. It was the goo god sect's method of controlling the goo mother. Now that she had broken the connection between Bai Feng and the goo mother, it was impossible for her to summon the goo mother back, unless her goo techniques were more profound than the goo god sect's goo mother. However, how many years had the goo god sect been around for? How many years had Bai Feng been practicing goo techniques? They were not even on the same level. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She ignored Bai Feng's attempts to summon the goo mother. Every time the other party's mental waves were transmitted, she would cut them off. The goo mother did not respond. It only flapped its wings lightly when Luo Qingtong's mental waves fluctuated. On the other hand, Yi Qianxian's young fox body immediately stopped chasing after the little cloth tiger when it saw the goo mother. It only focused on attacking the goo mother. Luo Qingtong was overjoyed when she saw this. She pursed her lips and smiled. She mischievously ordered the Gu mother to tease the silver fox up and down. The silver fox kept flapping its wings, but it still could not be caught. Yi Qianqian's heart had given up struggling. He looked expressionlessly at the body of his young fox, which was struggling in the air with all kinds of abilities. He secretly made a note of Luo Qingtong in his heart. How many times had this woman tamed and teased him? When he regained his human form, he would definitely make her pay for all of it. Luo Qingtong ordered the Gu mother to fly around the courtyard. In an instant, she had unlocked the posture of walking a fox. She rested her chin on her hand and looked at the little fox's happy face as it flapped its wings. The smile on her face was indescribably happy. As for Bai Feng, after several failed attempts to summon the Gu mother, she was about to vomit blood. She could feel that the Gu mother was not dead. It was just that it had lost contact with her. However, she could not summon it back. Bai Feng was so angry that she gritted her teeth and turned ashen. Just as she returned to the Bai family with an ugly expression, the second elder of family whose branch came to her door with a shocking news. Yan Nyang is back. Patriarch Bai, didn't you say that you would help us gain control of the Hu clan? When the time comes, we will cooperate with you to put pressure on Hu Zhongtian. Let him take care of family Hu and Hu Fei's safety and hand over that thing. Don't tell me you guys have forgotten. The second elder's face was gloomy. Before Bai Changfeng said anything, Bai Feng had already walked out from behind the screen. She had already changed by Yong Nyang. When she heard the second elder's words, her face immediately turned cold and she said, "Of course not. Don't worry. Family Hu is family whose branch is branch. Yen is back? What a coincidence." It couldn't be that she had something to do with the voodoo sect, could it? However, Mother's mother Hu Yen Nyang had been chased out of the far west wastelands in such a miserable state. No matter how lucky he was, there was no way he could wipe out the entire voodoo sect so easily. Not a single clue was left behind. Moreover, the person who did it seemed to be proficient in Gu arts. Bai Feng suspected that it was an expert from the hidden world. It was rumored that the hidden world was the gateway to the outer realms. There were people with all kinds of inheritances. This time, the news of the sage monarch's tomb had spread and attracted many people from the hidden world. It was not impossible that some of them knew Gu arts. Chapter 1294. Bai Feng gritted her teeth as she thought of this. If that was really the case, then she could only grit her teeth and swallow her pride. After all, everything that the voodoo sect did was shady. She could not make a big deal out of it and let the Hua and Bai families stand up for her. Bai Feng's heart was filled with anger and frustration as she thought of this. Fortunately, although the parasite queen was gone, only the Bai family knew about the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in the family Hu. As long as they could get their hands on the map, they would have the right to be on equal footing with the Ouyang family. They would be able to share the greatest benefits from the exploration of the Saint Monarch's tomb. When the time came and she revealed this to the Hua family, the Bai and Hua families would join forces. Her status in the Hua family would naturally rise and she would be even more influential. Bai Feng's frustration lessened as she thought of this. She looked coldly at second elder and said, "Go back and ask Hu Zhongtian to abdicate his position. We will put pressure on him. Ask him to hand over the family whose item and abdicate his position to you." Hu Zhongtian was about to die and the parasite queen in Hu Fei's body had been awakened. He would definitely not survive. Bai Feng was very confident of this. So what if Hu Yennyang came back? Could it be that she could rely on her own strength to overturn the entire Hu clan? She was just giving them a bargaining chip to threaten Hu Zhongtian to hand over the item. In the end, she would have to watch her father and brother die and family Hu fall into the hands of the collateral family. However, it was good that the mother and son were back. It was a good opportunity for her to eliminate them completely. Otherwise, with that man's identity, the mother and son's existence would be a disaster. She could not let that man know what she had done back then. Otherwise, her lie would be exposed. She and the Bai family would fall into eternal damnation. Even the Hua family would not be able to protect her. Bai Feng's expression was very serious as she thought of this. An uncontrollable murderous intent and jealousy appeared in the depths of her eyes. Back then, she did not expect that her casual scheme to set up Hu Yennyang would end up involving such a man. Moreover, the latter obviously could not forget Hu Yennyang. If she hadn't received the news in time, she would have forced Hu Yennyang and her son to leave and deceive that man. He was afraid that he would have been exposed and turned into a corpse at that time. At the thought of this, the jealousy in Bai Feng's eyes became even more obvious. She really couldn't understand why Hu Yennyang's luck was so good. She had tried every possible means to snatch her husband away. In the end, she had found a better man in the blink of an eye. And it was designed by him. As Bai Feng thought about this, she clenched her teeth so hard that they were about to bleed. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Seeing this, the second elder nodded in satisfaction and left. He had already contacted the people in the clan. When those highly respected elders heard that Yen Yang had returned and that Hu Zhongtian seemed to intend to let her inherit the family they immediately rushed over to stop all this. He had already convinced them to support him in seizing the position of patriarch, forcing Hu Zhongtian to give up the position of patriarch. Now, with the help of the Bai family, he would definitely succeed. When the time comes, he would definitely chase Hu Zhongtian and the others out of the family just like how he and the others had ended up in such a sorry state. The second elder left in satisfaction as he thought of this. Chapter 1295. She took out the amethyst bright jade fruit that she had obtained previously. The amethyst bright jade fruit was a miraculous fruit. Not only did it have a miraculous effect on increasing one's mental strength, but it also contained a huge amount of medicinal power. It was enough for Luo Qingtong to break through to the martial ancestor realm. It had been some time since Luo Qingtong had broken through to the peak of the martial emperor realm. Now, it was time to try to break through to the martial ancestor realm. After all, if she wanted to go to the Sage King's tomb, she could not be too weak. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong immediately put the amethyst bright jade fruit into her mouth. With the Gu mother guarding outside and playing with the silver fox, Luo Qingtong was not worried that someone would barge in while she was breaking through. Moreover, she had already told everyone not to barge into her courtyard for no reason. Luo Qingtong focused on breaking through. The moment the amethyst bright jade fruit entered her mouth, it immediately turned into streaks of medicinal power and flowed into Luo Qingtong's limbs and bones. A portion of the medicinal power flowed into her mind. The other portion of the medicinal power flowed into her elixir field and circulated along her meridians, strengthening the power in her body. Rumble. Waves of power surged in Luo Qingtong's body like stormy waves, expanding the meridians in her body. As the medicinal power pushed and strengthened, Luo Qingtong's barrier to the martial ancestor realm in her body was also constantly attacked. Rumble. A faint barrier, invisible to the naked eye, lit up around Luo Qingtong's body. It vaguely communicated with the surrounding heaven and earth energy. Among them, streaks of energy that were wrapped in medicinal power bombarded the barrier like a torrential storm. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks began to appear on the barrier. But strangely, it did not break. Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. Is the accumulation of power not enough? Luo Qingtong originally thought that the amethyst bright jade fruit was enough for her to break through to the martial ancestor realm. Now, it seemed that she was still lacking a little. That's right. She had just absorbed Feng Wuan's energy to break through to the peak of the martial emperor realm. He was afraid that the power was not solid enough. Therefore, even with the help of the purple jade bright heart fruit, it was impossible for him to break through the barrier and enter the martial ancestor realm. However, the fact that she was able to create a crack meant that the level of power in her body had reached a certain level. It was just that the degree of condensation of the power was not enough. Otherwise, he could have broken through in one go. However, the next breakthrough would be fine too. With this in mind, Luo Qingtong prepared to withdraw her power. She still felt some regret in her heart. It would be great if Yi Qianxian was here. She could borrow some of his strength to break through the barrier and enter the martial ancestor realm. After all, she could use a man's power as her own. It could completely make up for her lack of condensed power. Unfortunately, he wasn't here. Forget it. He could break through again the next time. However, Luo Qingtong frowned. She always felt that the Ouyang clan's leaking of the Saint King's tomb was not simple. If possible, she still wanted to increase her strength as soon as possible. Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking, outside, Yi Qianxian controlled his young fox body. When he turned around and saw that Luo Qingtong was breaking through, he immediately rushed in through the door. He walked to Luo Qingtong's side. With a casual glance, he could clearly see that the problem that Luo Qingtong was facing was that the degree of condensation of the power was not enough. Chapter 1296. Yi Qianming immediately went behind Luo Qingtong and fiercely patted her dantian on her back. In an instant, a force suddenly entered Luo Qingtong's body, as if it had been stimulated from her dantian. With a boom, that force flowed through the meridians in her body and mixed with Luo Qingtong's power, rushing towards the barrier that had risen up in her body. Luo Qingtong was about to withdraw her power when she suddenly felt a new force in her dantian. Before she could react, that force had already flowed through her meridians and blasted towards the barrier of the martial ancestor realm. Luo Qingtong's heart was suddenly filled with joy. For a moment, she did not have the time to investigate where this force came from. She immediately mobilized the power in her body and blasted it towards the barrier together with that force. Bang! After receiving such an impact, the barrier immediately shattered into pieces with a bang. A new force, completely different from the previous martial emperor realm power, rose from Luo Qingtong's body and filled her meridians. Martial ancestor realm. Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with joy and she immediately opened her eyes. Whoosh! In her eyes, the blood-red aura that was originally like a mist that filled Qingshui's eyes became even more intense. In the depths of her pupils, there seemed to be a bright red color that dyed the center of her pupils red. It was like a small, blood-red sun. Finally, I've almost recovered half of my strength from before. Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with joy. Wherever her eyes passed, all the sounds of insects and birds, the sound of wings flapping, and even the trembling and falling of leaves were all vivid in her mind. In Luo Qingtong's eyes, it was like a 3D projection that presented all the scenes that she swept her gaze across. As long as Luo Qingtong wanted to see everything within a radius of 100 meters, she could immediately see everything down to the tiniest detail. In her previous life, when she was at her peak, Luo Qingtong did not even need to use a trace of mental strength to monitor the scene within 100 meters of her at any time. She could even sense that something was wrong with the slightest tremor in the wind. Although she had not recovered to her peak strength, it was already not bad. At least, she did not need to use so much mental strength to use the basic ability of her eye technique. She could save the excess mental strength to do other things. Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly smiled. This purple heart enlightening fruit is indeed a good thing. As Luo Qingtong said this, she suddenly felt something soft lying on her back. Luo Qingtong touched her back and grabbed it. She immediately smiled. This little mischievous boy, are you tired? Luo Qingtong looked at the little silver fox lying on her hand. The little silver fox seemed to be asleep. Its eyes were tightly shut and its belly rose and fell. Its soft, fluffy fur also rose and fell with its breathing. Yi Qianxian reluctantly sent a trace of energy from this young fox's body into Luo Qingtong's body to help her break through to the martial ancestor realm. After that, he immediately fell asleep from exhaustion. Luo Qingtong looked at the little silver fox sleeping soundly and immediately tapped its little nose. Chapter 1297. She thought that it was the final accumulation of the purple jade fruit's power that helped her break through. After all, the silver fox's claws were too soft. Luo Qingtong didn't notice it patting her during her breakthrough. More importantly, whether it was a human or a fox, the power of different individuals was exclusive. If someone else's power entered her body, Luo Qingtong would immediately sense it. However, Yi Qianxian's power was an exception to her. Even if you beat her to death, Luo Qingtong would never have thought that Yi Qianren would turn into a cute little fox and stay by her side. Therefore, she didn't even think about it. Luo Qingtong carried the sleeping little fella to the bed and placed it on the mattress. The sky outside was already bright. Luo Qingtong's breakthrough took almost 1 day and 1 night. She cleaned up and prepared to leave family Hu to find Su Yu and the others. At this moment, the guards of family Hu's main courtyard came looking for her. Hu Fei had woken up. Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian asked her to go over and take a look. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and ordered someone to guard her courtyard. Then, she brought the Gu Poison Queen and the guard to the main courtyard. Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian were already waiting in the main courtyard. Master. Hu Yinyang saw Luo Qingtong and immediately bowed. There were only the 3 of them in the room. Hu Zhongtian didn't know her identity outside, and she wasn't afraid that someone would spread the news of Luo Qingtong's identity. Luo Qingtong looked at her and nodded. Then, her gaze moved to Hu Fei, who was behind the 2 of them. Hu Fei was half sitting on the bed. His face was still pale, but his complexion was much better than before, when he was as lifeless as a corpse. After the Gu Poison Queen was removed, the life and soul energy in Hu Fei's body were no longer absorbed. Naturally, he slowly recovered. However, after all, Hu Fei's life and soul energy had been absorbed for so many years. His mental energy couldn't be compared to a normal person's. Not only that, after being bedridden for more than 10 years, his muscles had atrophied so much that he couldn't get out of bed and walk around. His strength had also been completely wasted in these 10 years of being bedridden. An ordinary person wouldn't have been able to take it. However, Hu Fei didn't look too dispirited. He had already learned everything from Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yinyang. Knowing that he had been harmed by Bai Feng and had been bedridden for more than 10 years like a cripple, Hu Fei felt extremely vexed. He hated himself for not telling Hu Zhongtian about Bai Feng all those years ago. This way, their Hu clan wouldn't be so miserable. But fortunately, it wasn't too late for the Hu clan to wake up now. Looking at Luo Qingtong's gaze, he struggled to get up, but he couldn't move. In the end, he could only bow to her and say, "Thank you, 9th young master, for saving my family Hu from danger. Family Hu will never forget young master's great kindness." Luo Qingtong looked at him and nodded slightly. This Hu Fei wasn't bad. Do you want to regain your strength from back then, or even become stronger? Luo Qingtong looked at him. The latter was stunned for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and looked at her. Ninth young master. You mean? I can help you regain your strength from back then, or even become stronger. Chapter 1298. Hu Fei's current situation was completely due to the Gu Poison Mother's consumption. After so many years of consumption, Hu Fei's vitality and spiritual energy had been lost. His strength and aura had also become food for the Gu Poison Mother. He had become nutrients for its growth. If it were anyone else, they would not be able to ask for these nutrients from the Gu Poison Mother and turn them into strength and return them to Hu Fei. That was not realistic at all. Luo Qingtong would not do that either. Moreover, the goo poison mother was now hers. Luo Qingtong would not sacrifice the goo poison mother to make up for Hu Fei. But, if the goo poison mother could not be used, she could find it from its original owner to make up for it. Don't forget, the goo poison mother was nourished by Bai Feng's blood. It consumed Hu Fei's energy and strength to nourish itself. However, a portion of its strength was provided to Bai Feng through the connection between it and Bai Feng. Otherwise, even if Bai Feng's original intention was to prevent Hu Fei from spouting nonsense, and she was also afraid that the man who had taken Yen Yang's virginity would notice something was amiss, so she used the goo poison mother. However, after so many years, why did she not kill Hu Fei but instead kept the goo poison mother in Hu Fei's body? Naturally, it was because the goo poison mother was also benefiting from absorbing Hu Fei's energy and strength. Luo Qingtong did not need to go out and ask around. She was certain that Bai Feng's strength must have increased very quickly over the past 10 years. Every breakthrough must have been easy, right? Her status in the Hua family must have been getting higher and higher. That was why she could help the Bai family rise and help the voodoo sect develop better. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up into a smile. If she had not felt threatened this time and was afraid that Hu Fei would expose himself, she would not have thought of getting rid of Hu Fei so quickly. After all, he was such a good source of nourishment. Others could not compare to Hu Fei's potential. Not everyone could withstand the goo poison mother's consumption for so many years. Since Luo Qingtong liked Hu Fei and the latter was Yen Yang's brother, she was naturally willing to help him. Anyway, she loved to see those ingrates reap what they sow and regret it. I can help you recover your previous strength. However, are you willing to swallow this goo poison mother again? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at Hu Fei. She raised her hand and summoned the goo mother in front of her. Previously, when she brought it over, she already had the intention to see how Hu Fei was doing. If the other party was worthy of his help, he would do so. If it wasn't anything, then so be it. She couldn't be bothered to put in so much effort. Do you dare? I dare. Hu Fei looked at the goo mother in Luo Qingtong's hand, and his face paled even more. However, he gritted his teeth and nodded heavily in the end. Even though she knew that she had been in a coma for so many years because of him, she knew that it was all because of him. Even if one's strength was wasted or regressed, it would be the same. If Luo Qingtong could not force the mother of goo poison out like the last time, she would most likely return to being a useless person who was like a living dead, but all of these worries could not compare to his desire for strength. Anyway, his life was saved by Luo Qingtong. So what if he put his life in her hands again in order to trust her this time? Hu Fei had already told Hu Yenyang everything he knew, including the things he had investigated back then. Chapter 1299. As for his father and sister, if he didn't have the ability, how could he protect them? He might as well just die and not become their burden. Even if Hu Zhongtian didn't tell him many things about family Hu Fei could feel that his father was forced to compromise and agree to let second elders people move into the main residence to take over the family Hu. It was because of his paralysis and coma. Otherwise, why would Hu Zhongtian compromise so much? Hu Fei's expression was resolute. His face had only turned pale for a moment at the very beginning, but he had immediately agreed. All right. Luo Qingtong nodded and narrowed her eyes. You just need to open your mouth. As she spoke, she used her mind to control the mother of goo poison to fly towards Hu Fei. Hu Fei's face was pale, but he still opened his mouth. Young master. The mother of goo poison flew towards Hu Fei's mouth. Hu Zhongtian, who had been holding back from speaking, couldn't help but shout. It wasn't that he didn't trust Luo Qingtong. But, he had just seen Hu Fei wake up, and now he had to see him being parasitized by the mother of goo poison again. Hu Zhongtian couldn't help but feel afraid. He was afraid that his son would never wake up again, Father, it's all right. If Master can save Big Brother once, she can save him a second time. She's helping Big Brother. Hu Yinyang was very excited. She was very clear about Luo Qingtong's medical skills and knew that she never lied. If she said that she could help Hu Fei recover his cultivation and even make him stronger, then she definitely could. In fact, when Hu Yinyang heard that Luo Qingtong and Hu Fei could recover his cultivation, she almost couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Hu Fei had become like this because of her. Hu Yinyang naturally hoped that he could recover completely. She didn't expect Luo Qingtong to give her such a good answer. Thank you, Master. Thank you. Hu Yinyang choked with sobs and bowed to Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong didn't stop her from bowing to her. She had done this for Hu Yinyang. That was why she had helped to save Hu Fei. Otherwise, how could a person make her feel good? Lend a hand? She was not that free, nor was she that saintly. Get out. I'll call you when it's ready. Luo Qingtong said to Hu Yinyang. Yes. Hu Yinyang pulled Hu Zhongtian out of the room. Yinyang, this ninth young master, can he really? Hu Zhongtian walked out of the room with a face full of worry. Father, if Master can't help, then in this world, at least in the entire True Spill continent, there aren't many people that can help Big Brother. Perhaps those great alchemists in the hidden world could do it. But that kind of person was hard to come by. Moreover, why would the other party help them? Hu Yinyang knew that family who didn't have any bargaining chips that could persuade the other party. What's more, those people's abilities might not be comparable to Master's. This was the confidence that Yinyang had developed after following Luo Qingtong for so long. Father, don't worry. Master can definitely do it. Big Brother will definitely recover. Oh, good. Hu Zhongtian heard her so confident and couldn't help but ask, Yinyang, you've always refused to say what you were doing outside. What is your identity? Chapter 1300. Hu Zhongtian was very curious. Luo Qingtong's attire was very inconspicuous, but when she faced the second elder's family, she revealed a very intimidating aura from time to time. Hu Zhongtian could also be considered as someone who had seen a lot of things. He had seen countless powerhouses and clans. But Luo Qingtong's aura was not something that could be cultivated by just anyone. Only someone who stood in an extremely high position, who once looked down on everyone and lived an unrestrained life would have such an arrogant aura. Who was she? Could she be the nephew of the Imperial Sect Master, or a peerless genius disciple of the sect? Father, don't ask about Master's identity. Hu Yinyang naturally would not casually reveal Luo Qingtong's identity. The far west wilderness was mixed with crooks and honest people. Because of the Sage King's tomb that was about to appear, there were more and more experts from all walks of life. The more Luo Qingtong's identity was exposed, the worse it would be. You only need to know that with Master around, our family who will definitely be as stable as Mount Tai. And we will definitely rise. That's enough. Hu Yinyang looked at the room and murmured. The luckiest thing in her and her son's life was meeting Luo Qingtong and being saved by her. From then on, they no longer had to fear the wind and rain. And just as Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian were talking, in the room, after Luo Qingtong let the goo poison queen fly into Hu Fei's mouth, it immediately flew into his mind. Just like when it parasitized Hu Fei before, it ruthlessly pierced its mouth into Hu Fei's mind. Because this time, he was awake and saw the goo poison queen enter his body. Hu Fei was also very aware of the goo poison queen's parasitism. Just as he could not help but feel numb in his mind, Luo Qingtong's voice rang in his ears. Circulate the aura in your body. Remember, absorb as much power as you can. If you miss it, there won't be any left. Luo Qingtong said. Before Hu Fei could react, there was a buzz and the mother of goo in his mind had already flapped its wings. In the next second, the Gu enslavement imprint drawn by Luo Qingtong on its forehead started spinning in reverse. Buzz! Wave after wave of power came from a secret connection in the Gu Poison Queen. Reverse Gu. Luo Qingtong had previously used the Gu God Sect's Gu controlling method to sever the connection between the Gu mother and Baifeng, but she did not sever this connection. It was just that the connection between her and the Gu mother was suppressed by a higher level of Gu controlling method. Now that she had reversed the Gu technique, the connection barrier between White Phoenix and the Gu mother had disappeared. She didn't even have the time to rejoice that she had regained her Gu mother. In an instant, the energy and essence in her body were drained away like how the Gu mother had absorbed Hu Fei. And this kind of drain was even faster because Luo Qingtong was using a higher level of Gu controlling method. In the 24th century of southern border in Luo Qingtong's previous life, the battle between the Gu clan was extremely fierce and cruel. Those who were suppressed in Gu controlling method would either submit to the other or be stripped of everything, Gu worms and strength. But generally, those who were devoured by the Gu worms would have their strength devoured by the Gu worms. The Gu worms would be fattened up, and the winner would designate them to be the Gu worms of others. Luo Qingtong made a slight improvement and fed all the strength of the Gu worms back to Hu Fei. Chapter 1301. The Bai Family. Bai Changfeng and Bai Feng were discussing how to use the map of Family Hu once they got their hands on it. He had already sent someone to Family Hu. At the same time, he had also sent someone to invite Hua Ting over. The reason was naturally because of Bai Feng. When Hua Ting and the others arrived, they would be able to, coincidentally, discover the map of Family Hu. Then, they would act surprised and share the map with the Hua family. With the Bai family's current strength and status, if they did not rely on the Hua family and directly went to the Ouyang family with the map, they would be swallowed whole. After all, whoever had the map would have the greatest advantage in the exploration of the Holy King's tomb. Everyone knew that. By then, the Bai family would be in trouble because of their wealth. As the two of them were discussing, Bai Feng suddenly stood up with an indescribable expression of surprise and joy on her face. Before Bai Changfeng could ask her what had happened, he saw her expression change abruptly. In an instant, she was extremely shocked. What's going on? My strength. Ah. Bai Feng's face was filled with shock. She fell to the ground and wailed in pain. The strength in her body was continuously being absorbed. The backlash from the queen of venomous insects caused the essence and power in her body to be drained continuously. Meanwhile, in Family Hu, the energy in Hu Fei's body was continuously increasing. The reverse parasite technique could only be used on the person who had been poisoned. Since Hu Fei's energy was absorbed by the parasite mother, the energy absorbed by the parasite mother after it devoured Bai Feng was naturally fed back to him without any hindrance. If it were another person, they would not be able to accept the energy fed back by the parasite mother. The energy in Hu Fei's body continued to increase. Outside, Hu Yennyang and her father, who were anxiously waiting outside, suddenly received a report from a guard. Family head, young mistress, second elder's people are here. They even brought people from the clan. The Family Hu guard looked extremely anxious. Second elder and his people had come in such a menacing manner. They had directly barged into Family Hu and even called people from the clan. They were probably not here with good intentions. Humph. They're finally here. Hu Yennyang's expression was cold. She retracted her gaze from the door. Father, let's go take a look. Hu Yennyang had been mentally prepared after she chased away second elder's people from Family Hu. The other party would definitely not give up so easily. As for the people of the clan, since they were able to force her father to give up on her for the sake of Family Hu, this time, they would definitely not watch her return without taking any action. Since that's the case, let's do it together. Today, she was going to make up for all the things that had happened in the past with them. All right. Hu Zhongtian's expression was also very solemn. However, just like Hu Yinyang, he was already prepared when he chased away the second elder's people. Moreover, Hu Fei had already awakened. He no longer needed to look at the faces of the clan members. If the other party still wanted to force him to let his daughter leave like he did back then, that was absolutely impossible. The group headed to the main hall. In the main hall, second elder's people were already waiting there. The people from family Hu and the clan were also seated on the main seats. One of them, who looked extremely old, sat on the highest seat in the middle. His eyes were tightly shut. His entire body was surging with a faintly discernible and powerful aura. It attracted the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions, shielding the area where he was from the others. A powerful cultivator of the saint state. Chapter 1302. Great-Granduncle. In the hall, the second elder spoke respectfully to the old man, Hu Zhongtian is obstinately clinging to his own course. As the most respected elder and expert of the Hu clan, you can't allow him to casually decide the inheritance of the Hu clan. That stupid bastard that Hu Yinyang gave birth to. I don't even know where that bastard came from. If the mother and son were to inherit family Hu, I'm afraid our family Hu would be destroyed in the future. And the clan would be in trouble as well. After all, the whole city knows what Hu Yinyang did back then. The Hu clan is also very angry. Hu Zhongtian ignored our Hu clan because of his own selfishness. Great-Granduncle. When the time comes, please step in and shut the mouths of the people. Second elder was very pleased with himself. With the clan and by clan stepping in and pressuring him, Hu Zhongtian had no choice but to hand over family Hu to him today. Once he took control of family Hu, the first thing he would do was to get rid of Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yinyang. And that young man called Yi Jiu. Thinking of that young man who helped Chu Lingfeng break into family Hu and saw Hu Zhongtian, second elder gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. If not for him, their bloodline wouldn't have been in such a passive position today. Not to mention Hu Bang and Hu Yener, it was also because the other party had called out to Chu Lingfeng at the city gates and Chu Lingfeng had resisted. That was why his two most beloved grandsons and granddaughter had turned into such a hideous state. Hu Yener had already been sent out of Wilderness City with a foul smell all over her body, and Hu Bang was lying in bed like an idiot and a cripple. In addition, the reason they were chased out of family whose main residence was also related to that Yi Jiu. He didn't care about the others. He couldn't be bothered to deal with them. But this Yi Jiu, he wanted to get rid of him and Hu Yinyang together. Didn't he want to help Chu Lingfeng? Didn't he acknowledge the other party as his big brother? Then let him live and die together with Hu Yinyang and her son. Humph. The second elder's face darkened. As for the great uncle, he didn't even bat an eyelid. I know what you're talking about. Although this family Hu belongs to Hu Zhongtian's bloodline, but since he is so stubborn, our clan will not stand by and do nothing. Hu Yinyang. If it wasn't for Hu Zhongtian stopping her with all his might, she would have been drowned in a pig's cage. How dare you come back to family Hu? Do you think there's no one left in our clan? It's impossible for her to inherit family Hu. Today, we will make Hu Zhongtian hand over the inheritance to you. The elders beside him nodded in agreement. That's right. The right to inherit family Hu cannot be given to a bastard. Not to mention a fool. Hu Yinyang is so shameless, there's no way she can inherit family Hu. The people of our clan will never allow it. The group of people spoke with a strong sense of righteousness, but in reality, they had already been bought over by the second elder's bloodline. The Bai clan had promised the second elder's bloodline that if they obtained the map, they would give it to the Hu clan and bring them into the Saint King's tomb. The second elder's bloodline naturally wanted to enter the Saint King's tomb to obtain a great opportunity. With their strength, if they waited until the map of the Saint King's tomb was complete and entered the tomb with the other forces, they might not be able to get anything out of it. Chapter 1303. The second elders faction agreed without hesitation. They were willing to work with the Bai family to force Hu Zhongtian to hand over the map. If it weren't for the arrival of Luo Qingtong and the others, they would have succeeded. Now, the people of the clan couldn't bear the thought of Hu Yennyang inheriting family Hu. Secondly, the second elder tempted them with the Bai family Hu map. Naturally, they wholeheartedly wanted to fight for the right to control family Hu. The group of people sat arrogantly in the main hall, waiting for the appearance of Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang. When Hu Yennyang and Hu Zhongtian stepped into the main hall, they were greeted with cold and merciless glares like sharp blades. Especially when they looked at Hu Yennyang, their eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. Hu Yennyang, you did such a shameful thing in the past and made the Hu family the laughingstock of the wild city. How dare you appear in front of us now? The people of the Hu family were the first to attack. Hu Yennyang looked at them indifferently and said, "How am I shameless? Moreover, you are the ones who appeared in front of me, not the other way around." As she spoke, she glanced at the people of the second elders faction and the clan with a sneer. "I know why you are here today. Aren't you coveting the right to control family Hu? And that thing too? But don't worry, you won't have the chance." Hu Yennyang stayed by Luo Qingtong's side in the main city of the Black Field and dealt with the major forces of the Sacred Dynasty every day. The Hu family and the second elders faction today were just child's play to her. Did they think that she was still the same Hu Yennyang who cried and wanted to die after being accused? Hu Yennyang, don't try to twist words and force logic. Your reputation has been tarnished. You are also a woman. There is no way you can inherit family Hu. Our clansmen are only thinking about family Hu's future. That's why we want to meddle in the affairs of the main lineage. Today, even if you're going to make us take the blame, we're going to clear family Hu's name. Seeing that Hu Yennyang had exposed their intentions, the members of the Hu clan all said angrily out of humiliation. "Humph. Qingming? What right do you have to meddle in the affairs of the main branch of our family Hu with all the scandals you've done?" As Hu Yennyang spoke, she took out the information that Luo Qingtong had given her, and threw it in front of the members of the Hu clan and second elders branch. The Voodoo Sect's people had used the Gu Mother to infect many of the clans in Desolate City, including the Hu clan and the second elders branch. Hu Yennyang had thrown all the dirty deeds that they had done in front of them, such as bullying and tyrannizing women. You. Where did you get these things?" The expressions of the Hu clan and the second elders' lineage changed abruptly when they saw the secret things they had done before being exposed, and they looked at Hu Yennyang with extremely shocked gazes. How did she get her hands on all the dirty things they had done? Only the members of the Voodoo Sect who had been controlled by the Voodoo Sect looked at Hu Yennyang with shock. They recognized that they were the ones who had provided the Voodoo Sect with all this information. How did it end up in Hu Yennyang's hands? Could it be that the Voodoo Sect was founded by Hu Yennyang? All these years, they had been controlled by Hu Yennyang? The members of the Hu clan were shocked. Chapter 1304. Yennyang, you've always been very smart. His gaze swept past the information that Hu Yennyang had thrown out. It was about the secret deeds that the Hu clan and second elders lineage had done in secret. His gaze was cold as he looked at Hu Yennyang. In the past, you and your elder brother were publicly acknowledged as the two smartest people in this generation of the Hu clan. In fact, in some aspects, you were even smarter than your elder brother. It's a pity that Hu Zhongtian spoiled you too much and raised you to have a naive personality. He looked at Hu Yennyang with a cold smile and said, "Otherwise, you wouldn't have ended up like this back then. Now, your naive personality hasn't changed. It's indeed your ability to obtain these things." That great-granduncle said with a cold expression. "But if you want to rely on these things to make us leave completely and withdraw from this battle for control of the family Hu, your methods are still a little too inexperienced." Who can prove that the information you've provided was definitely done by members of our Hu clan? So what if the things recorded in these documents are true? As long as we insist that Hu Zhongtian deliberately slandered us in order to let your morally deficient daughter successfully inherit the family Hu. How many people in the entire wilderness city do you think will believe you? If you take these things out, I'm afraid that according to the records, the victims' families and people would want to tear you into pieces first, right? That great-granduncle sneered. He originally didn't want to speak. He had only come this time to oversee the situation and make Hu Zhongtian act according to their request. He wanted to abdicate his position to second elder, and then, hand over the map of the Saint King's tomb. But Hu Yinyang had thrown out such a document, so he had no choice but to speak. Hu Yinyang was really something. She had left her hometown pregnant and didn't die in the end. Not only that, she had found out about the secrets of the Hu clan as soon as she returned. Some of the things that great-granduncle had done were also recorded in the document. How could he continue to pretend to be a person of virtue and prestige? The great-granduncle looked at Hu Yinyang with anger and coldness in his eyes. His words immediately caused the members of the Hu clan present to react. That's right. Hu Yinyang. Don't think that you can force us to retreat just because you threw out these things. There's no one in your main branch. How can a woman like you, who has done all kinds of scandalous things, be qualified to inherit the family Hu? If you know what's good for you, you'd better hand over control of family Hu. Get out of here obediently. Otherwise what? Before these people from the Hu clan and second elder's faction could finish their clamor, an indifferent voice sounded from behind Hu Yinyang and the others. Then, a figure stepped in from the entrance. It's quite lively here. Luo Qingtong glanced at the crowd indifferently. She had just come out of Hu Fei's room when she heard that second elder's faction had joined forces with the Hu clan to cause trouble. Thinking about what she had just done, Luo Qingtong had a playful look on her face and directly came over. She was looking forward to seeing the expressions of these people from the Hu clan. It would definitely be very exciting. Moss. Ninth Young Master. Chapter 1305. Especially Hu Zhongtian, whose face was originally full of anger. Now that he saw Luo Qingtong and saw how relaxed she was, the surprise in his heart could not be suppressed. The other party appeared so easily. Did it mean that just as Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yinyang were unable to suppress their excitement, second elder looked at Luo Qingtong and sneered. If you hadn't appeared, I would have forgotten about you. Yi Jiu. That's your name, right? Later, all of them will be able to leave this place. Only you can't. The second elder had already regarded the Hu clan's control as something in his pocket. Now that he saw Luo Qingtong appear, he was like a hungry wolf that saw a rabbit. He sneered at Luo Qingtong, already seeing her as prey in his hands. Later, he would let this fellow know the consequences of offending him. That second elder's expression was gloomy. Luo Qingtong was not affected at all. Oh. Is that so? She looked at second elder and smiled lightly. Are you sure? She raised her eyebrows and glanced at the figure that appeared at the door. This is family Hu's main residence. I'm afraid it's not your place to speak, right? Luo Qingtong looked calmly at second elder and the clan members behind him. Humph. There's no one in the main bloodline, so someone from our bloodline should inherit this place. It's useless even if Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yinyang object. This is a matter decided by the clan. Although they are from the main bloodline, they still have to listen to the clan's decision if they have no successors. That second elder sneered. He thought that Luo Qingtong wanted to seek Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yinyang's support. However, these two people, one was a dying man and the other was a woman. They could not support her at all. Even if they wanted to snatch family Hu's inheritance rights, they could not do anything. not to mention supporting Luo Qingtong. As he thought of this, he looked at Luo Qingtong with an indescribably cold and vicious gaze. However, right at this moment, an icy cold voice suddenly sounded from outside. "Is that so? Who said there's no one in family whose main bloodline?" As he spoke, Hu Fei's figure stepped in from outside. He had just arrived at the door. The figure that Luo Qingtong had caught a glimpse of was him. "You? Hu Fei?" Seeing Hu Fei's figure appear, the complacent smile on the second elder's face immediately froze. He looked at Hu Fei in disbelief. How was this possible? Wasn't Hu Fei still lying in bed? He had been paralyzed in bed for more than 10 years. How did he suddenly recover? And, the second elder's face was filled with shock as he looked at Hu Fei's tyrannical aura. Saint stage? This was impossible. When Hu Fei was paralyzed in bed, he was only at the upper-class martial spirit realm. How could it be that after more than 10 years, not only did his strength not decrease, but he even broke through to the saint realm? How was this possible? Second Elder's face was full of shock. So were the people from Second Elder's bloodline and the Hu clan behind him. Bang! The few clan elders who had been sitting steadily on the main seats all stood up in shock. The great-granduncle could no longer maintain his calm expression. Hu Fei. Chapter 1306. Big Brother. Fei, Their hearts were filled with surprise and excitement. Although they had guessed from Luo Qingtong's appearance that Hu Fei must be fine. Moreover, his strength must have recovered and improved. However, when they saw Hu Fei, who had been lying on the bed with a pale face a moment ago, appear in front of them in high spirits, Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian were so happy that they cried. "Yannyang, father." Hu Fei looked at them and nodded. His heart was filled with excitement. However, now was not the time to show it. He looked coldly at the shocked members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline. "Are you the ones who bullied our main bloodline and wanted to seize control of family whose main bloodline?" Hu Fei sneered at the members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline. When he was young, he was known as the Cold Prince with the Jade Face. His strength was outstanding and his methods were ruthless. All the disciples of the middle-class aristocratic families in Wilderness City regarded him as their leader. At that time, his prestige was almost comparable to that of the disciples of the top aristocratic families. If Bai Feng had not used the Gu mother to harm him, he might have led family Hu into the ranks of the top aristocratic families in Wilderness City today. As his gaze swept across them, the members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline felt a chill in their hearts. Not for anything else, but Hu Fei's awakening meant that the main bloodline had a successor. When was it their turn to covet the Hu clan's authority? It would have been fine if Hu Fei had been bedridden for more than 10 years, his body was in tatters, and his strength had declined rapidly. However, at this moment, Hu Fei's footsteps were steady, and his strength had broken through to the saint stage. It was as if he had not been bedridden and unconscious all these years, but had been cultivating in seclusion. Under such circumstances, how were they going to seize control of the Hu clan? All the reasons they had given before now seemed pale and powerless, and were nothing more than a joke. The members of the Hu clan were pale, and Second Elder's bloodline was even more dispirited. They had never expected Hu Fei to awaken. But now, this plan was completely for naught. Scram! Hu Fei's voice was cold. The members of the Hu clan could not help but tremble. At this moment, the Second Elder's voice sounded. "Don't be scared by him." The Second Elder's expression turned ugly. Hu Fei's awakening had the greatest impact on him. All of his chips were all staked on fighting for the right to control the Hu clan. He had already formed a blood feud with Hu Zhongtian and the others. If he didn't succeed this time, he would just leave like this. In the future, would they still have a chance to establish themselves in Wildland City? Moreover, he didn't think that Hu Fei would let them off. Therefore, he could not leave this time. Don't be scared by him. So what if he woke up? Here, other than us, who knows that he's awake? The second elder's expression was ferocious. He looked at the elders of the Hu clan and said, "Grand Uncle, Hu Yennyang and the others possess many of our secrets. Today, you came with us to force the emperor to abdicate. You have already formed a deadly feud with them. You can leave now. But what about the evidence in their hands? And after what happened today, can the relationship between the clan and the main branch still be the same as before?" Chapter 1307. Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and the others' expressions turned serious when they heard second elder's words. They looked at the members of the Hu clan. The expressions of great-granduncle and the others had already changed. They were already prepared to leave when Hu Fei appeared. For so many years, the clan had always relied on the main bloodline. They were able to force Hu Zhongtian in the past because Hu Yennyang was in the wrong first. Now that Hu Fei had awakened, it was only right and proper for him to inherit the main bloodline. No matter how many thoughts they had, they could only put them away. But now, the second elder's words had suddenly enlightened them. It was true that Hu Fei had awakened and inherited the main bloodline. However, if the main bloodline was not close to their clan and even suppressed them, how were they going to live? Hu Fei and Hu Yennyang had deep feelings for each other. They had almost forced Hu Yennyang to her death back then. Now, Hu Yennyang had many of their secrets in her hands. In addition, they were forcing her to abdicate. Great-granduncle and the others' expressions kept changing. Right at this moment, the second elder's voice completely fell. "In my opinion, why don't we cut the weeds and eliminate the roots? Anyway, everyone knows that the main bloodline of family Hu has gone extinct. No one knows that Hu Fei has awakened, so we'll go all the way." As second elder's voice rang out, the group of clan elders all looked at Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. The coldness in his eyes was enough to make anyone who saw him shudder in fear. It was obvious that they had been persuaded by second elder. That's right. Things have come to this. There's no turning back. We must take control of family Hu's main bloodline. Hu Zhongtian, you can only blame your son for awakening and breaking through at the wrong time. Great-granduncle was the first to speak. As he spoke, he suddenly charged past Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. As long as these two were killed, there would be no one to support the main bloodline of family Hu. When that time came, wouldn't their clan have the final say? As for Hu Yennyang, she was just a woman. She was nothing to be afraid of. With this thought in mind, the great-granduncle attacked Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian ruthlessly. At the same time, the several clan elders behind him also charged toward Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. "Father." Seeing this, Hu Fei hurriedly stood in front of Hu Zhongtian, blocking the attacks of great-granduncle and the others. "Yennyang. Hurry up and take father and the others away." "Humph. You want to leave?" "It was too late. All of you will die here. As the price for refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Just as Hu Fei opened his mouth to speak, the second elder's cold and murderous voice rang out. He charged towards Hu Yennyang and Hu Zhongtian. "Yennyang. Father." Seeing this scene, Hu Fei's expression changed drastically. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang and pulled them to his side. Bang! The second elder's attack just happened to brush past Hu Yennyang and Hu Zhongtian's figures and landed where they were standing just a moment ago. "Master!" When she turned around and saw the person standing behind her, Hu Yennyang's face was first filled with joy, then shock. "Master, hurry up and leave. Second elder is a Saint Realm expert. She had always been in contact with Luo Qingtong, so she naturally knew that the latter was only at the peak of the martial emperor realm. Although Master's strength was extraordinary and she had always been good at killing enemies of a higher level, the difference between the martial emperor realm and the saint realm was too great. Chapter 1308. I'm fine. Get out of my way. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold when she saw Second Elder charging towards her again. She raised her hand and pushed Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian away. Boom! A blood-red light flashed in her eyes. In an instant, the pair of eyes turned blood-red. Especially the blood-red color in the middle of her eyes. It was as red as a blood-red sun that had just risen. Second Elder's heart skipped a beat when he saw her blood-red eyes. Soon, he regained his senses. Humph! What a trick! It was just the color of her eyes that was different from the rest. He had heard that some people who were born with diseases and defects would be different from ordinary people. But in reality, it was useless. Was she trying to frighten him by showing such an appearance? Unfortunately, it was useless against him. Second Elder sneered. He looked at the aura rippling from Luo Qingtong's body. Martial Ancestor Realm. What a joke. Second Elder's face was full of arrogance. His strength was not very powerful in Wildland City. But as someone who had just entered the Saint Realm, it was enough to show disdain for many people. If it weren't for his poor aptitude and only breaking through when he was nearing old age, the position of the Hu clan's patriarch would have long been his. Luo Qingtong, a mere martial ancestor realm cultivator, dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. What a joke! But since she wanted to die, he would fulfill her wish. Anyway, he had never intended to let her go from the beginning. Thinking of this, Second Elder looked at Luo Qingtong with murderous intent in his eyes. In an instant, the aura around him shook. In an instant, an extremely violent attack was brewing in the air. Then, it carried an incomparably strong pressure of spiritual energy in the air as it whizzed towards Luo Qingtong. Seeing this attack that carried a spiritual energy storm, Luo Qingtong's eye technique quickly operated. That blood-colored sun was spinning rapidly in the blood-colored mist and multicolored light around it. In an instant, the incoming attack was analyzed into countless numbers of data. Wind direction, attack speed, weakness. Previously, she could only vaguely see the weak points of the attack. But now, with Luo Qingtong's improved eye technique, she could see almost every movement of spiritual energy. Luo Qingtong let out a sigh of relief. She felt an indescribable comfort in her heart. I've finally recovered some of my previous life's condition. Previously, she had only been able to use the most basic functions, which really made her feel a little uncomfortable. Bang! Luo Qingtong turned her palm over and the life and death sword appeared in her hand in an instant. Compared to other weapons, this life and death yin-yang sword was most suitable for Luo Qingtong. This long sword seemed to be tailor-made for her eye technique. Under Luo Qingtong's control, it was clear at a glance when to transform the life blade to absorb power, and when to transform the death blade to cut. The timing was perfect. Luo Qingtong took out this life and death yin-yang sword to test the power of her improved eye technique. Second Elder, who was at the bottom of the Sage Realm, was the most suitable person to be her experimental subject. Of course, this was also because Luo Qingtong's strength had increased to the Martial Ancestor Realm. Otherwise, if she was still at the Martial Emperor Realm, even with the help of her improved eye technique, Luo Qingtong might not be able to do anything to Second Elder. But now... Chapter 1309. Bang! She held the long sword in her hand at an angle, and in an instant, she charged towards the Second Elder's attack. Boom! Under the Second Elder's shocked gaze, Luo Qingtong's life and death yin-yang sword heavily slashed his attack, and then the attack, hit back. That's right. It was hit back. The second elder's face was aghast. He looked at the attack that he had thrown out flying toward him. What's going on? His face was full of disbelief. Why did he lose control of his attack all of a sudden? Furthermore, it was flying towards him. He quickly dodged and looked at Luo Qingtong with unspeakable shock. How did you do that? How could she shake his attack of the Sage Realm with her strength? In the place where I used to live, there's an old saying, "For tails can lift 1,000 caddies." Luo Qingtong's expression was calm as she looked at him happily. You don't need to understand. You just need to know that as long as it doesn't exceed the threshold that I can resist, your attack is useless to me. Luo Qingtong said so and was very satisfied with the result of her experiment. Obviously, the life blade transformation and the death blade cutting, coupled with her improved pupil technique, the second elder, who had just entered the Sage Realm and was only a little stronger than an expert at the peak of the martial spirit realm, was no threat to her. However, this was also because the second elder's strength was too weak. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong might not be able to deal with an expert of the Sage Realm so easily. No. That's impossible. How could you possibly block my attack? How dare you boast that my attack is useless to you? You're just a warrior of the martial ancestor realm. The second elder refused to believe Luo Qingtong's words. The other party must have used some unorthodox method to dodge his attack. He didn't believe that she could keep using it. The second elder's face was ferocious. He raised his hand and blasted another attack toward Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong looked at the attack and jumped up easily. Bang! Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with bloody light and she waved the long sword in her hand. It was the same as before. With a boom, the attack flew towards the second elder just like how it came. Bang, bang, bang. The second elder's attack was blasted out. Luo Qingtong's long sword in her hand. Every time he blasted out an attack, she would hit back. In the end, even the second elder himself was exhausted. At this moment, Luo Qingtong had already closed in on second elder. Bastard! The second elder looked at her with a ferocious expression. But Luo Qingtong looked at him and suddenly smiled. That smile was both evil and domineering. How about I send you to hell? When Luo Qingtong said this, her left hand suddenly turned over. In the next second, the 1,000-year soul guiding wood appeared in her hand. Streams of energy surged into her body. Then Luo Qingtong raised her hand, heaven-conquering art. Then, the sword light broke through the sky and soared up. In an instant, the whole family whose lobby was illuminated by this light. Bang! The second elder was slashed out by that stunning sword light. Chapter 13:10. Bang! Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She turned around and looked in the direction that the figure had come from. There, a group of Hu clan elders and great-granduncle were looking coldly in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others. Their gazes were eerily cold and murderous. Big brother. Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yenyang hurriedly rushed to the place where the figure had crashed and helped him up. Cough cough. Leave quickly. Hu Fei clutched his wound and said to Hu Zhongtian and the others. Humph. Leave? None of you will leave this hall today. The Hu clan members had completely developed murderous intent towards Hu Zhongtian and the others. For the sake of their reputations, no one else other than them would be able to leave this place alive. The Hu clan elders' voices were cold. The second elder's voice rang out at this moment. Cough cough. Great-granduncle. Kill that Yi Jiu. Kill her first. There's something strange about her. The second elder had been severely injured by Luo Qingtong's sword just now. He had almost been killed by her. He looked at Luo Qingtong with shock and fear. The strength that she had displayed was not something that an ordinary person could display. Which martial ancestor realm expert could seriously injure him, a Saint realm expert, with one sword strike? Even if he was a Saint realm expert and was at the bottom of the Saint realm, it was still impossible. She was too terrifying. If she escaped, there would be endless trouble in the future. The second elder's words instantly attracted the attention of great-granduncle and the others. Their gazes swept over him, and they were instantly shocked. There was no other reason. Even with the second elder's strength, he had been injured to such an extent. With their eyesight, they could naturally see that if they had not sent Hu Fei flying and caused Luo Qingtong to stop her attack, the second elder would have been a dead man by now. She was actually so powerful? How could a martial ancestor realm expert win so easily against a Saint realm expert? At this moment, great-granduncle and the others looked at Luo Qingtong with cautious gazes. The murderous intent that was originally looking at Hu Fei, Hu Zhongtian, and the others now shifted to Luo Qingtong. Hu Fei and the others were no longer a threat. When great-granduncle and the others attacked, they had already sealed off the hall's movements. Those who were weaker than them would not be able to detect the movements within. They were not afraid that someone would come to save Hu Fei and the others. They would still be able to deal with Hu Fei and the others after they killed Yi Jiu. Great-granduncle and the others long sleeves with that thought, they immediately charged towards Luo Qingtong. Master! Hu Yannyang saw this scene and immediately cried out in alarm. Nothing must happen to Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes when she saw the great-granduncle and the elders of the Hu clan dashing towards her. 5 Saint. Besieging her. They really thought too highly of her. However, there was not much power left in the 1,000-year soul guiding wood in her hand, and there was not enough time to set up the array. Luo Qingtong frowned. She glanced around. Family who did not have enough defensive arrays to withstand attacks from Saint realm experts. This was not a problem that only family who had, but a common problem among all the clans in Wilderness City. Perhaps it was because the far west wilderness was a wasteland. Chapter 13:11. Luo Qingtong's brows were tightly knitted together. At this moment, her eyes suddenly focused. That's it. Bang! She leaped up. In the blink of an eye, he flashed past the attacks launched by the Hu clan members like a ghost. Her eyes flickered with a bloody light. Under her pupil technique, she was able to see the strength, trajectory, and speed of the attacks launched by the elders of the Hu clan and the great-granduncle. Everything was in her sight. She could see everything at a glance. Bang, bang, bang. Luo Qingtong waved the long sword in her hand. The attacks launched by the clan elders were all redirected by her power, just like the attacks launched by the second elder previously. They were all repelled back one after another. The attacks collided with each other and finally condensed together to cancel out the attack launched by the great-granduncle. She borrowed strength to fight strength. 4 ounces to 1,000 caddies. Only Luo Qingtong could do this. Otherwise, an ordinary martial ancestor realm cultivator wouldn't be able to see through the attacks of a sage realm expert or an expert who had surpassed the sage realm. Even a martial spirit realm expert might not be able to see through it. Not to mention above the sage realm. Every step up was like the difference between heaven and earth. Bang! Luo Qingtong's figure landed on the ground. With a few leaps, she appeared in front of Hu Fei. She raised her hand and fed him a bottle of medicinal liquid. Then, she patted his body. With a bang, Hu Fei felt that the injuries in his body had healed in an instant. Not only that, Luo Qingtong's pat seemed to have stimulated the potential in his body. The strength he could unleash now was above his original strength. With your current strength, can you block them for 100 breaths of time? Luo Qingtong looked at him and asked. No. Hu Fei gritted his teeth and said. Although he didn't know why Luo Qingtong suddenly asked him such a question, Hu Fei could feel from Luo Qingtong's attitude that this question must be very important. He really wanted to answer yes. However, this was a matter of life and death. If he insisted on saying that he couldn't do it, it wouldn't matter if he killed himself. However, if he caused Luo Qingtong and the others to lose their lives as well, he would truly be a sinner for all eternity. I can only hold on for 50 breaths at most. Hu Fei had fought with great-granduncle and the others before, so he naturally knew where his limit was. Even if Luo Qingtong had increased his strength, it was impossible for him to resist the other party for 100 breaths of time. After all, great-granduncle was an expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm. The difference between the Saint Realm and those who had surpassed the Saint Realm was too great. Not to mention the fact that there were 5 Saint stage experts by his side. If he had Luo Qingtong's ability, it wouldn't be a problem for him to hold on for 100 breaths. But he didn't. Alright, I got it. Hu Fei originally thought that the young man would be disappointed after hearing his answer, so he felt guilty. Unexpectedly, Luo Qingtong just nodded and didn't even frown. Hu Fei looked at Luo Qingtong and then heard her say, "I'll get someone else to assist you. It shouldn't be a problem for the two of you to hold on for 100 breaths of time. By the way, you don't have to be polite to him, and you don't have to worry about whether he will die or not. If necessary, you can even use him to block attacks." Hu Fei looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. Others? Who? Moreover, she could even use them to block attacks without caring about their lives. Chapter 13:12. Apart from the few of them, there was no one else here. The other guards were not enough to stop great-granduncle and the rest. While Hu Fei was puzzled, Luo Qingtong shouted softly, "Go!" Following her command, a golden ray of light shot out from Luo Qingtong's body. In a corner of the hall, Second Elder was sitting cross-legged with his teeth clenched. The blow that Luo Qingtong gave him was too heavy. It almost took away half of his life. Fortunately, he still had a bottle of top-notch healing liquid that the Bai family had given to him when he had made a deal with them earlier. It was said that it came from the Hua family. After Second Elder drank it, he instantly felt that his injuries were much better. That brat called Yi Jiu. Once he recovered from his injuries and was able to use some of his strength, he would definitely join forces with the Hu clan and make him die a miserable death. To appease the hatred in his heart. Just as Second Elder was gnashing his teeth in anger, with a buzz, a figure suddenly shot into his ears. "What's that?" The Second Elder opened his eyes abruptly. However, before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his mind. That stinging pain came so suddenly that the Second Elder had only just opened his eyes when he suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. Then, he realized to his horror that his body was out of his control. Buzz. Following Luo Qingtong's thoughts, the queen of venomous worms in Second Elder's mind kept flapping its wings. Its mandibles pierced into the Second Elder's brain, injecting streams of liquid that represented its essence into the Second Elder's brain. This action would deplete a large amount of the queen of venomous worms' life force and strength, and it would be difficult to replenish it within a short period of time. However, it could temporarily control Second Elder's body. Bang! Second Elder's body was forced to stand up, and he stood in front of the Hu clan members who were about to attack Luo Qingtong again. "Hu Tianda! What are you doing? Get out of the way!" Seeing the Second Elder standing in front of them, the great-granduncle frowned and flicked his sleeve. "Great uncle, it's not that I want to stand in front of you, but I can't control myself." As the Second Elder screamed, an attack instantly formed in his hand and blasted towards the people of the Hu clan. "Great-granduncle, get out of the way!" Bang! The members of the Hu clan had never expected that the Second Elder would suddenly attack them. Two of the elders were unable to dodge in time and were hit by the attack. They were instantly killed. Bastard! The great-granduncle looked furious. What's going on? Before he could finish his sentence, the second elder let out a blood-curdling scream and charged towards them again. When the second elder and the members of the Hu clan started fighting, Hu Fei was already stunned. He had never thought that the other people Luo Qingtong was talking about would actually be the second elder. How did he do it? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.